What If Neglected Naruto Raised by Hashirama and Mito. Part 2. Are you enjoyed part 1? I am sure you will love this what if. And if you did, please hit the subscribe button for more awesome videos like this. Check out my other videos, share with your friends and enjoy them. Check out the description. Comment down your opinion. So, without wasting any time, let's see today's what if. The death goddess growled, really, and you believe Naruto will just be some sort of backup in case something goes wrong? Because I heard you're planning on placing him in the Namikaze side branch and be used as a breeding tool for the Mokuton. That I can't allow. You have no business here, the goddess of fate Yami, Kami can't interfere with mortal affairs. Minato snarled. Now kindly let me go and be on your way. I gotta work and I have to get back to my son to teach him. Angered by the disrespect she threw him against the door as the yondaime hit with a loud grunt. Panting he looked up to the Shinigami as she stared down at him with disgust. You think you can order me around mortals? You think just because you think Menma is the prophecy child you can talk down to me and treat me like I'm some kind of commoner? Oh no Minato, for this disrespect I can't leave you unpunished. Be punished? Minato shivered. For your insolence I shall take away from you the bloodline and most of our chakra that made you what the mortals call the yellow flash. You are undeserving of it and so I will remove the Hashirama and 60% of your chakra from your body. You will then learn what it means to suffer just like you made Naruto. She said harshly, reaching out her hand towards Minato. No. Minato whimpered. No. Pain, that's right, pain was the main thing that occupied Minato's thoughts as he lay in a disjointed haze of pain on one of the emergency room tables. A small army of doctors and nurses were currently working over him in a fevered swarm of barely controlled chaos, pushing, prodding, sticking him with needles and tubes, calling for blood and more units of drugs he had never heard of before or could ever hope to understand how they were supposed to drive back the encroaching rush of blood or patch the gaping slash across his stomach that was steadily draining him of life. It looked like Minato was attacked by a savage beast. But that was quickly debunked as the slashes were infused with some sort of dark energy. It felt cold with a smell of death. Apparently what they didn't know was that Shinigami might have gone overboard after she removed the Hashirama and 60% of his chakra. They didn't know it was the death goddess and it was better that way. To piss off one of the trio sisters was a death sentence. Minato grunted as he felt every poke, prod, etc. as they were desperately trying to stabilize him and keep him alive. How did things get this bad? Why was the goddess punishing him for trying to save the world? Why risk everything because of the sake of a single boy? Why? These thoughts went through his mind as he just laid there. One meeting in moved forward to press a square of gauze to his shredded stomach. As she leaned back again to give one of the doctors access to the seeping wound. He saw that her latex-gloved hand was now painted a disturbingly vivid shade of red all the way up to her wrist. That was the second major thing to register in his fading conscience. He supposed it was only natural seeing as how they'd stripped him of all his clothes from the waist up after Jiraiya had carried him through the emergency room doors screaming for help. His mother was using most of her chakra to prevent the dark plasmic-like energy from reaching any of the internal organs, basically the heart. She was also overlooking the nurses who were able to extract the plasmic fluid via hose into a container. The plasmic was like a black liquid with purple energy waves. Once fully extracted they started to get him prepared for surgery. On the far side of the room over the tops of his toes, Minato could just make out a set of double doors with large glass windows. On the other side of the glass, standing outside in the hallway looking in, were his wife and son along with his sensei. The red-haired Kunoichi stood with her face almost pressed right up against the glass, desperately watching the knot of meeting in working over him. Her eyes were bloodshot and red, her cheeks wet and streaked with uncontrolled tears. She was shaking violently, the back of one hand pressed against her lips, as if struggling to hold in her ragged sobs. She stared at him through the window with watery green eyes, as if silently begging him to somehow pull through. Off to her side, standing slightly back from the door more near the middle of the hall, his son Menma looked on in blankness and could see the worried expression on his face. Menma was greatly concerned for him and his well-being. His son looked up to him and he was afraid that he wasn't going to survive. Jiraiya was most concerned for his student. He was the son that old Toad never had. He took pride in his students and his accomplishments. He felt like a proud father when he first met and trained him. But seeing him in critical condition and not knowing who attacked him. The vowed for vengeance against the one who attacked his surrogate son. Blood pressure 70/55 and dropping. A nurse standing near Minato's head called out. Damn it. The doctor on his left shouted again and hurriedly grabbed another unidentifiable medical instrument from one of the nurses and leaned back down over his shredded abdomen. His hands and the lower portion of his forearms were completely covered with blood and clotted gore. Ashi, call Hikari up in surgery and tell her to have an operating room ready for us. Once we get my son stabilized we're going to have to move him there fast. Blood pressure 65/50. The nurse called. Sachi. Minato-kun, look at me. Tsunade yelled as her strong hands began to shake his shoulder. Groggily blinking his eyes up at the one so insistently calling his name, he gave a weak twitchy smile under the oxygen mask that had been fitted over the lower portion of his face. "Tsunade Kasan," he whispered in a watery cough. He was taken aback by how weak his voice sounded even to his own ears. There was also the faint taste of blood now in the back of his mouth, as if speaking had dislodged something and released the proverbial dam. Tsunade stared down at him in unconcealed horror. Her amber eyes were filled with panic, her usually immaculate blonde hair mussed and tangled, as if she hadn't slept in weeks. "Sachi, what happened?" she demanded, unconsciously gripping his shoulder tighter as she frantically stared into his eyes. Her grip was beginning to verge on being painful. Minato couldn't help but feel guilty for being the one to put that frightened pain-filled look on her face. "SS Shinigami," he coughed as he passed out. The fiery, possessive look flared in Tsunade's eyes, and she speared the doctor with a poisonous glare that would have instantly turned him to ash if it were physically possible. Straightening from over her son, she turned to the nearest nurse and hissed, "Get me a pair of gloves. I'm taking over." None of the doctors or medical personnel dared contradict the female Sannin as the nurse timidly handed Tsunade a pair of latex gloves and scurried to the other side of the emergency room to get as far away from her as she could. "Don't worry, brat," Tsunade said as she snapped the gloves on and forced one of the other doctors to give up his spot by the table with nothing more than a glare. "You're going to be alright, I promise." Outside of the operation room, Kushina was sitting with Menma. Menma couldn't even sit still due to his worry about his dad's condition. Kushina was another story, she wondered how something like this could have happened. The compound was secured with powerful seals to prevent outside threats after the Namikaze massacre from Mito Uzumaki. The seals were powered by a triple matrix seal that encircled the compound with a powerful electric barrier that would fry anyone who dares touch it or tries to mess with it. The seal would also alert everyone within the compound if any intruder ever managed to get in. So what went wrong? Who managed to not only sneak in but assault her husband, the most feared man in the shinobi world? She knew it couldn't be Iwa Shinobi, since they fear him. Kumo was out of the question due to A's respect for him. Kurigakure wouldn't bother since they are in a civil war. Suna was the weakest so they didn't pose a threat. Suddenly it all came back to Mito, her clansman. But Mito already proved her point by killing most of the clan and leaving an impact. Plus she was a sealing mistress so she couldn't exactly rule her out for coming back for revenge. Oh, why did things have to go wrong? Why couldn't anyone just let fate do her job? "Mrs. Namikaze?" a nurse said. "Yes. Is my husband okay?" Kushina panicked. "Well, your husband is stable. He suffered from 7 broken ribs, his right leg was broken in 6 places. His broken rib cage almost pierced his lungs. His fingers were broken by most of them. His body was also infected with an unknown black liquid plasma in his blood. We managed to extract it all and heal his injuries. But that's where the good news ends." "What's the bad news?" She was scared to know the answer. "Whatever that plasma was. It apparently removed 60% of your husband's chakra. We tried to reverse it, but for some reason it affected your husband's chakra pools from replenishing what was lost. His chakra pools themselves have also shrunk to that of a civilian-born shinobi." Kushina covered her mouth with tears streaming down her face. She had no idea the extent of her husband's injuries and how far his assailant went. "I'm sorry, Kushina-sama, but I'm afraid your husband won't be as powerful as he used to be." "I'm sorry," the nurse apologized. "You should head home, we will call you when the surgery is over. Get some rest." Kushina nodded as she left the hospital with her son. She wanted to stay with her husband, but the nurse was right. After all, Tsunade was the greatest medic in the world. If anyone can save her husband she can. On the way to the Namikaze compound she dropped Menma off at his friend's house because of a sleepover they were having. After kissing Menma goodbye she walked down the streets and towards the compound. When she arrived she unlocked the security seal which allowed her access before relocking it. Namikaze compound main house. Humming to herself she entered the main house and headed into the kitchen to make herself some ramen. The sweet smell of the ramen filled the air as she poured herself a bowl and sat down at the table. While eating she felt a cold wind-like chill. Did she leave the window open? Did I leave the window open? Kushina asked herself. It's freezing. She quickly noticed it was open as she walked over and shut the window. Wiping her forehead she headed back to the table. Until she heard what sounded like whispers. "Traitor. Traitor. Traitor." The voices whispered. "Who's there?" Kushina shouted thinking there was an intruder. "Show yourself, traitor. Traitor. Traitor." Kushina started to panic, she could hear them, but she couldn't see them. But how did they get in? Acting on instinct she grabbed a large kitchen knife from the kitchen and moved slowly so as to not be caught by surprise. Suddenly the lights went out and the temperature dropped quickly to a freezing temperature. Ooh, now Kushina was scared as she started to hyperventilate. The house began to shake as the floor began to break apart. Kushina screamed as she rushed to the door as she gripped the door trying to pull it open. The door didn't budge, but the knob came off. She gasped as she saw the floor breaking apart more. Quick on her feet she rushed upstairs to seek shelter in her room. When reaching the top of the step she noticed someone at the end of the hall. "Hello?" she said, still clutching her knife. "Are you the intruder who's responsible for this? If so, I demand you fix this and leave immediately." When she got closer she noticed it was a boy around the age of 6 or 7. He had spiky red hair that was similar to Minato's. The boy was also dressed in a white shirt with an Uzumaki insignia on the back and black Hakama shorts. Could it be? Could it actually be? Could it be Naruto? "Naruto?" Kushina said softly. The boy was staring at the wall, not responding. Maybe the boy didn't quite hear her. Kushina decided to try again, this time with more motherly instinct. She then immediately noticed a deathly figure appear next to him. She gasped as she recognized that spirit anywhere. The Shinigami had appeared once again. Until 3 others appeared, 2 Uzumaki women and 1 male. They turned around to reveal Hashi and Yakin, her parents and the founder herself. Well, look what the cat dragged in." Shinigami smirked. "You." Kushina roared. "Leave us be. We've suffered enough from you." "Oh, someone's testy," the goddess laughed. "And no, you haven't. You see, I was talking with some of your deceased Uzumakas and like me aren't very happy with you." Kushina recognized the ghosts immediately. It was her parents Yakin and Hashi and the founder herself, Anita Uzumaki. But why would they be here? Why would they come to visit her when they've never done it before? She was going to find out. "Father. Mother." Anita-sama, Kushina said before her father interrupted her. "How could you do this, Kushina? I raised my daughter better than this." Yakin shouted. "I didn't raise my daughter to forsake her own kin. I raised you with good morals and branded the Uzumaki creed into your brain. I did not forsake my son's father," Kushina defended. "What would you call it then?" he asked with a raised eyebrow. "It's called protection. He would be safe within the village while Minato and I train Menma to control the Kyuubi's chakra. You could have raised him in the Leaf Village," Hashi scolded. "Naruto held the soul and it would be dangerous to have the 2 of them together. The Kyuubi would be allowed to slowly absorb its chakra back into its body." Kushina explained. "You could have had Tsunade to stay behind and take care of him. She is his grandmother after all." Anita said coldly. "Tsunade was needed with us. If Menma ever lost control and hurt himself she would be there to heal him." Kushina replied defensively. "Besides, Shizune stayed in Konoha so she could take care of him. You're his mother, you're the one who had to raise him." Hashi screamed. "I did this to protect both of my sons. Besides, Naruto will be back with us when we return to Konoha in a few days. Menma will have his brother back and the prophecy will be on its way to fulfillment." Hashi and Yakin shook their heads at the daughter's arrogance and belief in someone as stupid as a prophecy. The Uzumaki clan never believed in such nonsense. The only time they would believe it if Lady Delphi herself was the one who foretold it. Hearing it from an old toad was not evidence enough that this prophecy was even real. "You've lost your way, Kushina. You've abandoned and betrayed the Uzumaki creed that we've followed since Anita-sama, the granddaughter of Indra Utsutsuki, founded the clan." Yakin said in disappointment. "I've done no such thing." Kushina argued. "We of the swirling tide value camaraderie and family above all others. United we thrive, severed we fall. We swear upon Lady Anita that family will always come first. No outsider inside force will come before it. We the Uzumaki clan swear to uphold the sacred creed and leave no family behind." Anita recited, glaring at Kushina. "You broke the very creed I created. You left Naruto behind. You abandoned him for a prophecy. We the ancestors of the Uzumaki clan find you unworthy of the clan name and its sacred blood. You can't be serious." "I already told you the reason for all this is," Kushina said, stomping her feet. "The need of the many outweighs the need of the few. Naruto will understand when we come back from him. Besides, he won't be under any threat. Kyuubi's soul is powerless so there is no harm." "Yubaka!" Anita screamed. "A tailed beast soul is more manipulative than its chakra. Naruto could very well turn to the tailed beast for comfort if he ever learned of your abandonment of him. Naruto will be fine. Like I said, Mito is there with him. Speaking of Naruto, he already knows you abandoned him." Shinigami laughed. "That's right, apparently he's met Kyuubi and the fox told him. And Naruto knows." Kushina stuttered. "He wasn't supposed to know until we came back." "You're lying, there is no way Naruto could have met the fox. The seal was designed to separate Naruto from the soul until a certain age." "Ooh, I'm telling the truth, Kushina." "Ha ha 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 ha, in fact Naruto already hates you and your husband. He doesn't hate Menma though since he believes his brother had nothing to do with this." Naruto would never hate us," Kushina said bravely though secretly was afraid it might be true. "Don't believe me? Well, go ahead and ask him yourself." The goddess gestured to the boy standing next to her. "Naruto, it's me, it's mommy," Kushina smiled. The boy slightly turned his head to the right, acknowledging the woman calling out to him. Kushina was breathing a sigh of relief. If this was Naruto then perhaps Shinigami returned him to her. She smiled warmly until the boy turned around. It was Naruto except half of his face and body were decayed and rotting. Like Amelia Croftrall in Tomb Raider Underworld, his clothes from the front were torn and bloody. He bore a similar resemblance to the goddess Hell. No. Kushina said, backing away as the boy slowly started to walk slowly towards her. No. 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 The boy was indeed Naruto, but Kushina couldn't believe what she was seeing. It looks like her son went through a blender or something or walked through acid. Its appearance was horrifying as if from a horror film. She had to be dreaming. This had to be a dream. She tried to desperately wake up but found out quickly this was all real. What sort of trick is this? Kushina shivered. It's no trick you wanted to see Naruto. Well, here he is, or what remains of his former self. The goddess laughed darkly, sending shivers up Kushina's spine. You abandoned me, Ka-san, the Naruto thrall replied. Why didn't you love me like Menma? Kushina was sweating and panting heavily. Her heart was racing as the creature was coming closer. She tried to move, but it was like she was frozen in place due to the amount of fear she was feeling. Naruto, please, I don't abandon you. I love you as much as Menma, Kushina screamed as she started sobbing. No, Ka-san is lying, the thrall shouted. You never loved me. You wanted Menma because he would save the world. The creature continued its way closer to Kushina as it stopped to pick up the knife that Kushina dropped when she tried backing away. She sobbed as she saw him pick it up. Fearing she was going to die, she begged for her life. Please, Naruto, please don't kill me. I'm sorry for abandoning you. She cried as he stepped forward closer and closer with every step. Please, Naruto, please spare me. Please spare me, please, please, please. She immediately remembered her baka kunai in her waist pouch as she took it out and thrusted it into Naruto. She panted as the creature looked at her and cried. Suddenly the thrall exploded into a pool of blood, drenching her in the red liquid. She screamed as she tried to wipe it off her body. She thrashed and rolled around trying to wipe it all off until she suddenly passed out on the floor. The Jinjutsu faded as Shinigami and the Uzumaki spirits looked upon her body. Well, that was entertaining, the goddess laughed. I wish I could have tortured Minato that way. You think Kushina has learned her lesson? Anita asked. Knowing her, she'll probably think it was just a nightmare. Yakin scoffed. Still think she deserved more than what he gave her. Ooh yes, thanks for reminding me, I almost forgot. The death goddess knelt down before Kushina as she held her palm wide open as Kushina's body glowed dark purple. Suddenly chakra chains came out of her body and were absorbed into the goddess's hand. Kushina's chakra chains were slowly being removed from her body while her chakra pools were undergoing a slight change. They were still large, but their potency, which all Uzumakis have, were becoming less and less potent. Which meant her longevity was cut in half. Normally Uzumakis can live to 200 years at best, but now Kushina will live up to at least 80 to 100 years old. Her knowledge of all Uzumaki seals were stripped from her mind. But she was allowed to keep the seals that would help keep Menma in check if he ever lost control of its chakra. Not that it would do her any good. After a few good minutes, Shinigami was finished. Kushina's bloodline and knowledge of the Uzumaki sealing arts were gone, her longevity was cut in half, and her special chakra to manifest solid objects was gone for good. She was of course allowed to reproduce, but her children and grandchildren will never carry Uzumaki blood unless they marry into the Uzumaki clan itself. The goddess then moved the unconscious woman to her bed, so when she wakes up it will be like she had a horrible nightmare. I think we've overstayed our welcome. It's time we left for the netherworld. Our work is done here, the goddess chuckled. Will Kushina remember any of this? Hashi asked. Your daughter will this day, Hashi. It will be a day she will never forget. Why did you give her back the ability to reproduce? We had Kushina and Tsunade remain barren. We also stripped them of their bloodline. Anita demanded an answer. You may have been able to punish her, but you only made her bloodline and blood dormant, which meant she still had it in her body. However, I decided to tweak it a bit. I fully removed and absorbed her Uzumaki bloodline and cut her longevity in half. Also, I gave back her ability to reproduce. Her children and grandchildren will be full with no drop of Uzumaki blood. But Minato is quarter Uzumaki due to being Tsunade's son, said Hashi. Oh, I took care of that. Minato's Uzumaki blood was removed when I punished him. He still sends you by blood, but no blood relation to your clan. Unless of course you want her to always have a miscarriage. No, we will allow her to reproduce. Anita sighed. But at least she will never breed Uzumaki children again. What about Tsunade? Yakin asked. Leave that old woman to me. But that being said, the spirits vanished from the Namikaze compound, leaving a soon-to-be traumatized Kushina and a beaten-down Minato in the hospital. If Tsunade or Jiraiya catch wind of the Shinigami being responsible for both attacks, they better pray to Kami for protection if the death goddess dares to come after them next. They don't know it yet, but if they do catch wind of it, then they better start praying. It has been a few months since the whole Kushina incident as we find Naruto Senju on his favorite swing under the big tree outside of the academy. He loved that spot so much, it was where he and his mother used to have their picnics. Naruto was as happy as a 6-year-old can be, and he was excited about beginning the academy. Normally the academy for students begins when you're 8, but Hashirama wanted the children to be better prepared for the cold life of a shinobi. The students would then graduate at 13 as always, but this new change was good, especially for the non-shinobi clan-born students. Naruto was happily swinging while reading his favorite story. Kurama was on his left side sleeping in the shade in his fox form. He was the size of an adult version of Akamaru. The fox was released from the seal a few months ago with the help of Madara and Mito herself. The process was painful but worth the wait. The fox was still bound to the seal though via a soul link that connected the two of them together. The fox now turned over on his back rubbing around against the grass, trying to get into a good sleeping position. Naruto laughed as he closed his book and jumped off the swing. Walking over, Naruto knelt down and began scratching Kurama's belly. He was shocked when he noticed his tails were waving. It Kurama like his belly scratched who knew. Grumbling and opening his eyes he noticed scratching his belly. He quickly moved onto his belly and looked at the boy. "Aki, why were you rubbing my belly?" Kurama asked. "Sorry Kura-san, but you were on your back in your sleep and I thought you wanted one. Plus your tails were wagging." Naruto smiled innocently. Kurama's sweat dropped hearing that. He wasn't some puppy that craved attention from his owner. But still he had to admit it did feel nice and he and Naruto did get along. Sighing he told Naruto that he can give him belly rubs but only in private since he didn't want word getting out that the greatest tail beasts in the world likes belly rubs. The blonde nodded his head in agreement. Naruto turned around and leaned back to snuggle into his side. "This kid has really grown on me," Kyuubi chuckled as he wrapped his tails around the boy. "All tired out, is he?" A voice spoke. Kurama turned to see Hashirama. The fox looked back at the gaki and nodded his head. "Out like a light. Though I thought Uzumaki and Senjus had amazing stamina and energy to stay up for hours." "Well that's true, but not everyone is gifted with that." Hashirama laughed as he knelt down and ran his hand through his son's hair. "So how are you enjoying your freedom, Kurama?" "Not complaining. Although I enjoy the sweet fresh air and wind against my face. I don't enjoy the looks from certain people that I've been receiving. I have no quarrel with the mortals that hate me. But I am concerned about the breast's welfare." "How so?" the Hokage asked. "Even if 98% of the village accepts me and Naruto as the other 2% though small can still pose a threat to the boy. Even if he's your son that alone won't stop them. People have betrayed the village for less. But they know you're close and protective of the boy. They wouldn't risk angering you." "Like I said Hashirama, even the stupidest of men would take a risk if it meant ridding the village of Naruto." Kyuubi answered coldly. Hashirama knew that no matter what the era, conflict will always happen. He knew firsthand how they were treated, but he believed his village to be different. But even that is wishful thinking. Yes, 98% love Naruto and accept Kurama, but the last 2% still fear for their lives. Fear is natural. He knows that inhumans fear what they don't understand. But even still anyone who threatens or harms his son, be it friend, ally, enemy or family, he will never forgive them and will put an end to them. "So any word from you-know-who?" Kurama asked growling when he said you-know-who. Hashirama nodded. "Yes, I received a letter from my granddaughter that the Namikaze family is arriving tonight via royal escort by the daimyo. Minato from what I heard was attacked while in his home and his wife Kushina suffered a traumatic experience from some unknown source. Based on what Tsunade said in her letter, Minato's chakra reserves have shrunk to that of a low. Kushina however is physically fine, but her ability to use chakra chains have vanished. Also her mind seemed to have suffered quite a bit." Kurama took a moment to think for a minute of what kind of entity could do something like that. There were many demons and other beings that were capable of such damage. But something that involves chakra and bloodline loss was something different. He swore he knew someone that could do it, but quite put his claw on it. Any clues that they might have on who did it? The only clue they had was someone with long black hair and red eyes. Hashirama shrugged. "Wait, dark hair and red eyes." "Ooh," Kurama grinned. "You know something? The only person capable of this is the Shinigami. She has the ability to punish humans in the most sadistic way. She also has the ability to take away abilities from people. Plus she is the only female deity with the darkest black hair and red eyes. Plus she must be punishing Minato for breaking her deal. It all fits. So they won't pose a threat trying to get Naruto back." Hashirama sighed in relief. "Don't underestimate Minato nor Kushina, Hashirama. They may be weak now, but they've overcome much worse than what happened to them, believe me. Uzumaki are very stubborn, your wife is a good example. Plus Minato is a genius, a very rare one I might add, which I hate admitting. So even in their weakened state just remember. A cornered animal is the most dangerous." He couldn't agree more with the Nine Tails. Minato was a powerful shinobi even with his flying thunder god, which was based on his brother Tobirama's. Uzumaki were among the greatest of Fuinjutsu users and they had very potent chakra and long lifespans. But Hashirama believed he could handle them due to him being the god of shinobi. but he shouldn't get too cocky. Their conversation continued for a few hours when Naruto somehow woke up from his mid-afternoon nap. Yawning, he noticed that his father had come to see him. "I'd add," Naruto smiled. "Hello, Maelstrom. Sleep well?" "Yeah, a good afternoon nap after playing ninja with Sasuke and Neji tired me out. I can see you formed a great friendship with the two. Speaking of which, how is Neji doing?" Hashirama asked. Hashirama knew from the Hyuga clan what Kagaya had done. Hiashi burst into his office in full blunt rage, explained the situation, and demanded the head of Kagaya for her crimes. Kagaya was called to his office to explain her side of the story. She told him about a certain seal that was used to keep the side branch in line. She also told him the effects of the seal and what it does to the person's mindset. He was infuriated with this kind of slavery. He dealt with many disobedient senjus during his time, but never would result in barbaric enslavement. He chewed Hiashi out and tore him a new one. He couldn't interfere with clan affairs, so he couldn't do anything. However, Kagaya managed to win the day by gaining custody of the side branch and adopting them into her old clan Utsutsuki. He remembered Hiashi's horrified expression as he knew the power and prestige of the Utsutsuki clan. To save face, Hiashi gave up the side branch to Kagaya, which saved him from any political embarrassments. "Neji is doing great too, San. He's settling in well, as are the others. However, I'm a little weirded out that when I one day marry Kagaya, I'll have to call Neji my stepson. But I like him more like a big brother." "What about that fangirl of yours? The one who has a crush on you? The one who's trying to impress Madara?" Kurama teased, making the boy fume. "Hero Fox, she's not my fangirl and I'm not into her, okay?" Naruto yelled. "Don't put images like that in my head." Kurama and Hashirama laughed at his little tantrum as the fox stood up and shook his body. Hashirama picked up his son and was going to take him to the compound for dinner. Apparently Mikoto invited them over for a special dinner. He then carried his son by piggyback as Naruto wrapped his arms around his neck. They walked down the street where many greeted them on their way to the compound. On their way there, Kurama took a right, much to their confusion. "I'll meet you all there. I have to take care of something," the fox said, taking a shortcut to the graveyard. Hashirama and Naruto just shrugged and left the fox to his own business. When they left, some of the villagers, and yes, you guessed it, fox haters, decided to follow it and ended. Creeping through the shadows, they took notice of the fox heading into the graveyard. Deep into the graveyard till he came to a halt. The shinobi stood in the shadows waiting for a moment to strike. The fox sat down before a tombstone which read, "Here lies Tobirama Senju, the great shinobi, a faithful brother, a devoted friend. It's been a long time, my old friend." Kurama chuckled, wiping his eyes. "I'm sorry I haven't been here as much as I hoped. But things have been a bit busy for me. But a lot of good things happened. I made a new friend, your nephew Naruto. Your brother and sister-in-law were brought back from the grave to raise me, who was abandoned by his real ones. Thanks to the brat, I am finally able to walk in the real world again. But still, I wish you were still here, Toby. I still blame myself for not being able to protect you during the Second War when Mito allowed me freedom to fight by your side." Kurama was allowed freedom after the First War but was still bound to Mito. He was allowed free reign as long as he behaved. Tobirama and him at first hated each other. But somehow not really sure how they managed to create a civilized friendship. Not best friends but still friends. After Hashirama died, Kurama was always there for Tobirama, which the guy thanked him for. Their friendship soon became a close companionship. Maybe even more than that. Kurama would always fight alongside Minato or Tobirama in battle. Until that fateful day during the Second Shinobi War. When Tobirama chose to sacrifice himself for his village. It was the last battle they ever fought together and it was one he regretted. Tobirama was struck down by a sneak attack with an explosive tag attached to a kunai. Kurama remembered going into rage and killing every enemy ninja there. Once he calmed down, he tried applying his chakra to his wounds. He was bleeding too fast and many internal organs were damaged. Kurama tried much to his ability, but Tobirama told him that he was okay. He did his job and he did it for the village. Kurama remembered his blood-covered paws as he looked down on the lifeless body of his closest friend. Tobirama was more than just a friend. Unknown to the second Hokage, Kurama was in love with Tobirama. The rest of the story was history. "Tobirama," he cried, tears as they dropped to the ground. "I can sense you, shinobi. Come on out." The group consisted of 4 and 15 villagers. They all carried pitchforks and armed themselves with multiple weapons. "We are here to avenge our loved ones that you killed. The Hokage may believe your sorry sob story, but we don't. We know better. Today you died, demon, and maybe your son will be free of your influence." Kurama stood and rose to his feet as he turned around and glared at them. "You should know better than to threaten someone like me. Especially when I'm in such a bad mood." Kurama charged at them as they charged in return, hoping to finally end the fox. But boy, were they outnumbered. Ooh, so very wrong. Kurama was not only able to overpower them, but he dismembered each of them slowly and painfully. Legs ripped off, bodies ripped open while still alive. Heck, even one of the ninja was dissected. Kurama showed no mercy as the ground was spilled and stained with blood. Anting sat back down and began licking the blood off him. When he heard a clapping sound behind him. Now that's what I call a show. The fox turned to see an old woman, well, more like a hag. She was short and had a humped back. Her teeth were rotten and her skin was wrinkled and saggy. "Who are you?" he asked warningly. "I mean you don't harm Kurama. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Gilda, I'm the embodiment of time and age. What is someone like you doing here? And how do you know my name?" "I know all about you, Kurama, from your birth to your life right now. I also know of your relationship with Tobirama Senju." She laughed before coughing. "I can sense great distress and hurt in your heart. You blame yourself for his death, do you not?" "That's none of your business, old hag. Temper just like a child. Well, I have come here on Kami-sama's wishes. I'm here to give you this," as she holds out a bottle of silver water. "This vial contains water from the very river of eternal life. Sprinkle this water on any dead body and they will fully be restored to the age of when they first died." "What's the catch? Kami wouldn't just give this for free. There is always a price for something like this." Kurama scoffed at the woman's offer. "Naruto's fate is critical and we must ensure that nothing interferes with its progression. You are a critical part of Kurama, you are the demon of fire that the prophecy speaks of. Your loyalty to the Senju is unquestionable. Which is admirable, but you've been easily turned away by other means like Madara, for example. What's your point, lady?" "My point is in order for you to not be tempted by outside forces to steer you away from Naruto. We needed a way to keep you on the right track. So we decided to resurrect Tobirama. Maybe, just maybe, he can keep you safe. Tobirama died for this village, I understood that a long time ago. I'm loyal to the village, no question there. But I will not abandon or turn away from the village." Kyuubi roared. "But you do wish to have Tobirama back, don't you? Think about it." She hands him the vial as she vanishes out of sight. Kurama looked down at the vial in his hand. Is this really what he wants? Does he really want Tobirama back after the sacrifice he made? So many thoughts were conflicting in his mind. Was it right to resurrect a man who proudly gave his life for his home? A man who chose to die rather than see the village fall? A man who Kurama highly respected? Sure, he missed his friend, but was it enough to disturb his resting place? Taking a deep breath, he thought for a moment. Thinking of the benefits and cons of this decision. The benefits were that Naruto would have an extra family member if Hashirama or Mito would somehow pass away young. Naruto could also benefit in elemental as Tobirama was a master water ninjutsu user who could conjure up water without any water source nearby. The cons would be Hashirama would be furious about this, not to mention Tobirama if he was returned to life. Naruto needed all the help he could get, and what's the harm with one more Senju? It would help the numbers grow quicker. Plus Tobirama could keep Madara on a tight leash, so that was a score in Kurama's book. Gripping the vial, he made his decision. Leaning down, he used his chakra to crumble the earth till the casket was revealed. Pulling off the lid, there laid Tobirama perfectly preserved via preservation seals, which kept the body intact and well guarded against the elements. Uncorking the vial, he opened the man's mouth and poured the liquid down his throat. Stepping back, he waited to see if anything happened. After a few moments, he started to think that this whole vial thing was pure bullshit. I mean, only Shinigami and Kami have the power of resurrection. He couldn't believe he allowed himself to be conned. Until he heard what sounded like a groan. Kurama looked wide-eyed as Tobirama was grunting and flinching a bit as his eyes started to flutter open. "What? Where am I?" Tobirama groaned, trying to get up. Nindame looked around and noticed he was in a hole in the ground and quickly noticed the outline of the casket. Was he brought back to life? Did someone use the reanimation? He got up slowly as he could till he saw a certain paw in front of him. He looked up and noticed the Kyuubi in his sight. "Hey Kurama, is that you?" he asked. "Who else would it be if you crinkle a sack of water?" Kurama teased. "Yep, that is definitely Kurama." Tobirama sighed. "Mind telling me what's going on? Do you want the long or the short version?" "Give me the short version." He groaned. "There was a boy named Naruto Senju born to Minato Senju Namikaze, your great-grandson, and his wife Kushina Uzumaki. He was born with a twin brother named Menma. I was forced to attack the village after I was ripped from Kushina. I was defeated and sealed into the twins. Naruto got mine and Menma got my chakra. Afterwards there was a prophecy about a child who would bring peace to the shinobi world. Minato and his family believed it to be Menma, so they abandoned Naruto and took Menma with them to their compound in the capital. Shinigami found out and was furious, so she punished Minato and Kushina, but not before resurrecting Hashirama and Mito to raise Naruto as their son, who is known biologically there. Minato and Kushina are coming back to Konoha to get Naruto back and claim him. Also Madara is alive as well, and some old lady of time gave me this vial of water that would bring you back from the dead so you can help protect Naruto and help him fulfill his destiny. I said give me the short version." Tobirama said coldly till he sighed. Kurama pulled him out of the hole as he wondered how he was going to explain this to the Hokage and Mito. Tobirama stretched a bit to get used to his body after being dead for almost 90 years. He then asked Kurama to tell him more about the prophecy and how Naruto was doing. Kurama took the time to explain everything so that Tobirama could be up to date with everything that happened. I seem to think my grandniece and great-grandnephew could sink that low. Tobirama hissed. However, I'm glad the boy is doing alright. Though I'm upset that Madara is still alive. I hope the crow-sucking bastard remained dead, but it seems my idiot brother once again decided to show mercy to that bastard. Don't worry, he's changed and for the better as much as I hate him. He has changed. Kurama said. HMPH, someone of his caliber can't just change on a whim. If you want me to truly believe he's changed, then I'll see it for myself. Always the cold, untrusting man, even back during the first and second Shinobi Wars. The fox laughed. So where is my idiot brother now? Your brother and his family are at the compound about to have dinner with Makoto Uchiha and her family. Care to join them? Sure, I'm always up for a little dinner and a little drama once I make my appearance. Alright then, let's be off, Kurama said, taking the scene accrued away from anyone, as this was to remain a secret for now. But the Namikaze family, a well-decorated carriage was coming towards the front gate of the Leaf Village. The two guards at the door noticed the design and believed it was a member of the royal court of the fire capital, or maybe the daimyo himself. The carriage driver handed over the documents of the people inside. They looked shocked and with disgust, but nodded as they were let through. Inside the carriage were 6 people, Minato, who was looking much healthier now thanks to his mother's medical skills. He was also perfectly built after retraining day and night since his recovery. He managed to increase his speed and agility to make up for the loss of the Hirshin. His chakra pools were now slightly high to low, but that was as much as he could do. Kushina was still suffering from the after effects of the nightmares she had. She was unable to perform any of the old Uzumaki seals due to her memory being erased. Her chakra chains were gone forever. But she was still a powerhouse to deal with. She never really relied on her seals or bloodline that much. She proved exactly how stubborn Uzumaki women are. Menma was doing fine as well. He was well built and quite handsome to boot with his father's looks and blonde hair. His power level was that of high genin, but he was well trained in D and low C. Jiraiya and Tsunade were there with him to bring unquestionable support for the family. The last person with them was none other than the Amazon Queen of Nadeshiko. She was the embodiment of perfect beauty with a slim figure and long luscious black hair. She was dressed in her shinobi kimono outfit that hugged her figure with double swords on her back. They were on their way to meet with the Hokage Meru Senju, the 5th Hokage, to discuss the fate and future of one Naruto Senju, their former son and the queen's daughter's future husband. Minato and Kushina believed they did everything they could to ensure the boy's safety and for the whole shinobi world. Plus they also managed to secure a bright future for their sons. Menma would bring great power to the clan when he took over the Senju, Uzumaki, and Namikaze clan. Naruto would be head of the Namikaze side branch and be the protector of his brother. Not to mention the powerful children he would breed with Enibi. You sure Naruto's son won't hate us? Menma asked. Kushina laughed. Don't be silly, Menma. Naruto won't hate us. He's a smart boy from what I heard. He will come to accept us when we explain the situation. Your mother is the right kid. Your parents made a very tough choice. But it was for the benefit of the whole shinobi world. Jiraiya explained. Even if he does hate us, we will try to gain his forgiveness. Minato boasted. I mean, who wouldn't want to be the child of the Yellow Flash and the infamous Red Death of Konoha? Besides, Naruto will have everything he could ever want. Tsunade answered. Yeah, not to mention he's going to bed with Amazon women and a hot to boot. I mean, who wouldn't want that? Jiraiya chuckled, imagining it. Tsunade bonked him on the head, screaming about him and his pervertedness. The carriage came to a halt as the family stepped out of the carriage. Alright everyone, we have to see. Minato smiled as he and his family headed inside. The Uchiha compound. Meanwhile, back at the compound, Hashirama and his family greeted Fugaku and his family. Words of greetings were exchanged as the group entered the house for a well-cooked meal. Mito complimented Makoto on her cooking, making the matriarch blush. Sasuke and Satsuki greeted Naruto with the proper manners, which he returned. Please sit down, dinner will be served soon. Makoto smiled brightly. Everyone took their seats as the family began making conversations. Fugaku explained how Madara was going through the reformation of the Uchiha clan. He wanted to ensure there were no uprisers or any threat from within the clan. Hashirama laughed, knowing that his old friend was always the paranoid one. Naruto was helping Makoto cook the dumplings, which was his favorite part of their get-togethers. Sasuke and Satsuki were also helping as they enjoyed cooking a bit themselves. A puff of smoke appeared before them as Madara stood before them with a very serious expression. Hashirama knew that meant something was very, very wrong. Madara, is something wrong? Hashirama asked. The Uchiha only nodded as he replied. The Namikazes are here. They have arrived at the Hokage tower. The group was silent as the Hokage stood up. It was time to finally face them and to put an end to their quest of reclaiming Naruto. Suddenly a loud knocking was heard as Itachi said he would get it. When Itachi answered the door he noticed Kyuubi standing there. "Uo Kyuubi-sama, please come in," Itachi bowed. "Would you Itachi mind if my guests come in?" Kurama turned to his old friend as Itachi gasped seeing the second Hokage standing before him. Tobirama sighed before walking past Itachi and towards the living area. Hashirama heard footsteps as he noticed a familiar shadow in the doorway. The shadow vanished as Tobirama came into view. Hashirama and Madara's jaws dropped. Was Tobirama standing before them? Did someone bring him back from the dead too? "Close your mouths, you'll catch flies that way," Tobirama said sternly. "Although I can say for sure it's not nice seeing you again, Madara theme." Madara sighed but laughed, still acting high and mighty. "Aren't you Toby-dope? I can still crush you in an instant, Madara. Perhaps you would like another lesson up close," Tobirama screamed, releasing his intent. "Tobirama, enough," Hashirama shouted. "How are you here?" "A certain old fox and an old lady," Tobirama responded plainly. They all looked at Kurama who held his paws up. "Hey, don't look at me. I was just greeted by an old lady who said Kami sent her to give me this vial of silver water and bring him back. Anyway, don't blame the fox. For once I'm glad to be walking around instead of being dead in the ground. Besides, I'm here to meet my nephew." "Is he here?" Naruto overhearing jumps down and runs over to the man. "I'm Naruto, sir," he smiled. Tobirama knelt down as he looked over Naruto and saw much of Hashirama in him with certain traits from Mito. Smiling, he ruffled his hair. "Hello Naruto, I'm Tobirama, your uncle. I was the Hokage after your dad died young." Tobirama smiled. "Wow, you're the second Hokage," Naruto said excitedly. "I heard so much about you from Tusan. Good things I hope," he said looking at his brother. "Hello Tobirama, it's good to see you again." Mito smiled. "Hello again Firebird, you're looking good." "Oh why thank you," Mito blushed. Madara cleared his throat. "As much as we would love getting acquainted, I believe we have a family to meet." The group nodded as Tobirama asked if he could come along. Madara and Hashirama nodded as Tobirama took them to the Hokage's office along with Mito. Hokage's office. Minato and company were waiting for the secretary to give them the go-ahead. They noticed a look of disgust upon her face as she looked at them. They knew that they were not well liked from what Jiraiya told them. But they were willing to pay that price if it meant keeping the shinobi world safe. Suddenly an Anbu by the name of Inu, which they noticed was Kakashi, approached them. "Minato-sama and the family of the Hokage are ready to see you now," Kakashi said coldly, making them flinch. "Kakashi," Minato said sadly. They were led down the hall until they reached the Hokage's office. Kakashi knocked on the door. "Lord Hokage, the Namikazes and company are here to see you. Send them to Kakashi." Kakashi stood aside to let the family in. Minato opened the door and walked in. They were greeted by two people they didn't expect to see. Madara Uchiha, who was long thought dead, and Mito Uzumaki, the Namikaze clan killer, and a hood-robed man next to the Hokage seat. "So you finally show your face," Madara scoffed. Now Madara, although their presence is unwanted, they still want to speak to Hokage-sama, Mito said in a cold tone. "Mito-sama," Kushina said. "I didn't give you permission to speak to me, traitor," Mito shouted. Kushina flinched at her words as she shut her mouth. The Hokage's seat was facing the window as the Hokage spoke in a deep voice. "What brings you here?" "As if I didn't already know." "Lord Hokage, we have come for the return of our son Naruto. We understand you and Mito-sama have been raising him. We are grateful for that, but now that we are back we would like him returned," Minato explained. "You expect me to return a boy I loved as my own son? A boy who was abandoned by his parents, a boy who Lady Shinigami took pity on and gave him a new family. A boy who deeply loves and cares for Mito and I. The boy you had no right to," Swan shouted. "And how about turning around and showing us your face?" The Hokage motioned for his hooded friend to go first as the hooded man turned around and took off his robe, revealing himself to the group. Minato and the others gasped as they stood the second Hokage, Tobirama Senju. "But if he is here then that means..." The Hokage chair slowly turned around as Hashirama glared angrily at them. "Hello Tsunade." The air within the office dropped to such a cold temperature. The emotions emitting from the Senju brothers, Mito and Madara, were flaring and combining to raise the level of killing intent they were expressing. Hashirama was glaring at his granddaughter like he was glaring at an enemy. Tobirama was the same way as his older brother, except his reason was different. Tobirama had taught Tsunade the importance of family and the values of the Senju clan. Mito and Madara were glaring at Kushina. Mito was releasing killing intent for Kushina's betrayal of the Uzumaki clan values. Madara wanted to kill every single one of them since Madara was once a father and he loved his children, unlike Minato, who only loved one of his children and abandoned the other. Tsunade and the others were having mixed expressions and feelings about the situation at hand. Here standing before them were the first and second Hokage, Mito Uzumaki, and the infamous Madara Uchiha. The most powerful and dangerous of the shinobi nations and known as gods by all. "Digi," Tsunade said. My patience is wearing thin. Hashirama spoke coldly. You dared to show your faces after you fled from the village after the Kyuubi attack. How are you both alive and young? Jiraiya asked. A certain deity took pity upon Naruto and brought my wife, brother, and I to take care of him. Since you both failed in your parental responsibility, it fell upon our shoulders. The Shinigami, of course, Minato scowled. Prideful divinity bitch. We told Sarutobi that Naruto would go to an orphanage. There he will grow up with other children and have a normal childhood. Then when Menma turns 13 we will come back to retrieve him. Kushina explained. Because you wanted to raise the boys apart from each other under the fear of Kurama trying to take back his chakra right. Mito said in her sharp tongue-like tone. Not only that, but also due to a prophecy that decided the fate of the shinobi world. I knew it had to be Menma, and so it was decided to take him to the Namikaze compound in the fire capital. Jiraiya pointed out. Yet you didn't decide to leave the poor boy with a family friend or an allied clan. Tobirama said with a tone as cold as Madara's. We couldn't have him live with any of the clans as that would draw suspicion and attention to Naruto. Minato explained. Sounds like a bunch of bullshit to me, Madara scoffed. I, being a father once myself, would have made sure my child would stay with a family friend or ally if I had to perform a mission or whatever that was critical to the village's safety. Well, regardless of what you think of us. We did it to ensure the world's salvation and survival. Minato retorted. We know it was painful for us to do this, Naruto. But we are back now and we would like for the return of Naruto to us. Hashirama laughed. In fact, it was the most he laughed in such a long time. You honestly think I would surrender my son back to a man with a godlike complex? A man who threw away one of his sons for the training of another. A man who fled the village when they needed him the most. A man who deserted his village when we were in such a weakened state that left us in such a vulnerable state in which our enemies could easily attack us. Hashirama yelled at the end, panting hard. Lord Hashirama, please see. Minato sighed. Minato was soon interrupted by a gust of wind that was pure chakra. The feeling and the killer intent within was making it tough to breathe. Gazing up, he looked to see it coming from Tobirama Senju. Say please see reason and I'll rip out your eyes and shove them down your throat so you can see my hands tear your carcass open. The second Hokage shouted angrily. The party backed away, including Madara himself. They have never seen Tobirama so pissed off before, except only when it was wartime. The Namikaze family couldn't even move at the amount of Kai being released. The only one who wasn't affected was the Amazon Queen herself. She was gazing at Tobirama with such longing and lust in her eyes. Your reputation precedes you, Tobirama, the queen purred. And you are? Tobirama asked. My name is Gabrielle, queen of the Amazon, she greeted. Tobirama heard about the Amazon village of Nadeshiko. They were a race of powerful female shinobi that only married if they could be defeated in battle. He thought that was crazy, but he wasn't one to contradict or insult their methods and ways of living. He remembered when he fought a few members in his youth and won against them, but then refused to marry any of them as he wasn't interested in marriage or anything of the sort. A pleasure, Gabrielle-sama. Likewise, Tobirama. I wish we could have met under better circumstances, but am I here to fulfill the contract signed by Minato regarding his son Naruto and my twin daughters Xena and Artemis? According to the contract, they would meet up with the boy and during the exams they would fight. If Naruto wins, my daughters will be his. And if he loses his life, Mito growled. Precisely. Now if you would be a dear, call Naruto here. So he can be reunited with his parents and we can go on with business. Gabrielle smiled. Hashirama was about to stand up when Mito stepped forward and got into the queen's face. The Uzumaki matriarch glared and her hair flared as her eyes turned slits, her nails turned into claws and whisker marks grew on her face. She looked like a female human version of Kyuubi. Listen here, jungle whore, my baby isn't going to fight so she can fight your sexually driven spawns. Mito insulted Gabrielle. Gabrielle growled at the disrespect the woman was giving about her village and her daughters. She also flared her hair and countered with her facial markings becoming tiger-like. Her eyes, nails, facial markings strongly resembled a tiger as she growled back at Mito. I'd watch what you say, ocean bitch. The queen roared. When it comes to my son, I'll make sure only the best women marry my little boy. Mito growled. You mean my boy, Kushina shouted. Shut up, Kushina. Mito and Gabrielle screamed. Enough of this chatter, Tobirama, please back Naruto for us so we can put an end to this once and for all. I'm sure Naruto would love his former parents and get to know them. Hashirama grinned insanely, which Tobirama nodded at before vanishing. Hanahagakure. Ichiraku Ramen. Meanwhile we find Naruto at Ichiraku Ramen having some delicious miso ramen with Kagaya and Kurama. The sweet smell of aroma from the ramen bowl filled the redhead boy's nostrils as he dived into his bowl. Kurama never had ramen before and he never understood why Naruto or Kushina could even devour so much of this stuff. Still, it couldn't hurt to try it. Taking his chopsticks, he tasted the noodles and his taste buds took him to a whole new level of taste. Holy Kami, never would I have believed that ramen would taste so delicious, the fox laughed. Told you buddy, ramen is the food of the gods. Naruto smiled, finishing his sixth bowl. Kagaya was eating her ramen with more sophistication as per her character and status. She was enjoying the food that her future husband loved so much. Thank you Am-san, this ramen is wonderful. You and your father are amazing cooks. Thank you Lady Kagaya, it's our pleasure. Thank you for the kind appreciation. Am blushed. Excuse me, I'm looking for Naruto, a voice called out. Everyone turned to see Lord Tobirama standing in the entrance. Tucci and Am immediately gasped at seeing the presence of the second Hokage. They immediately bowed their heads. Lord Second welcomed to Ichiraku welcomed him. Pardon me for the interruption. But I am here to collect Naruto because my brother wants him to come to the Hokage's office. Tobirama answered. Any particular reason uncle? Naruto wondered. Yes, the Namikaze family has arrived in the village and are at the Hokage's office waiting for their presence. Naruto placed down his bowl as he stood up. Kurama knew how long Naruto had waited for this moment. His face was lowered at the ground with his hair covering his eyes. Kagaya was worried for him as well. She knew that her lover had a horrible past with his former parents, but at the same time she was looking forward to seeing how he was going to handle the situation. So they finally showed their faces after all this time. Naruto said coldly, which thickened the air around him. Are you sure you wish to face them now? We could always postpone the meeting until another time if you wish. Tobirama asked. No uncle, if I don't encounter them now. I'll never get over this rage that's building up inside of me. If I want to move on with my life then I have to ensure that they don't try anything to worm their way back to my life. Well if you're sure. Yes uncle I am very sure Naruto growled. Very well Naruto came with me, Tobirama said, taking his nephew's hand. Wait Naruto said as he got on Kurama's back. Kurama should come with us. I have a feeling Kurama wants a go at them too. Especially since he is now accepted by the villagers. Kurama sighed, but he had to agree with the brat. He most definitely had a few words to speak with his former and her husband. Nodding to the boy he took hold of Tobirama as they vanished. Kagaya thanked the Ichiraku family for the ramen as she opened a dimensional portal and went through it and decided to head to the office before Naruto did. Onahagakure. Hokage office. While awaiting for the arrival of Naruto the two families were arguing back and forth about the fate of Naruto. Hashirama was the most upset with the vocabulary of insults coming out of his mouth. Who knew the god of shinobi had such a colorful vocabulary? You arrogant little, traitorous, backstabbing, toad-sucking whore Hashirama shouted. You think you can demand anything from me? I am the head grandfather of the Senju clan, Tsunade retorted back. You're a cowardly nobody that I am ashamed to have created from my son's loins. You turned your back on everything your parents and I taught you. I did no such thing, old man. Like we told Sarutobi-sensei, the survival of the world outweighs the needs of a single boy. Tsunade scoffed at him. We put the survival of the world above our own family. The loud slap was heard as Tsunade felt her head turn sharply to the right. Minato and the others gasped at what they had witnessed. Tsunade was most shocked as her grandfather never raised a hand against her. We Senjus don't put anything above family Tsunade. Hashirama shouted back. You hit me? You've never raised your hand against me. Tsunade gasped, shaking a little. I'm your granddaughter, you're nothing to me now. As of now I disown all traces of you. You are no longer a Senju and don't even try to argue. You've never taken the mantle of Lady Senju while you were still in Konoha. Sarutobi told me you were too busy gambling and building up debt after debt. You've never attended council meetings and you haven't been taking care of the Senju clan compound and the clan's bank accounts. You've never even married and yet you had this man here with a man out of wedlock. Hey, my personal life is none of your business and for your information Minato was the best thing that ever happened to me. He became the infamous Yellow Flash and won us the Third Great War. Hell, even Iwagakure fears him so badly they wouldn't dare attack Konoha. You mean the Hirishin that my brother invented and mastered during the First and Second Great Wars? Hashirama scoffed. Your son even dared to claim that it was a bloodline that his clan was famous for. Suddenly a knock was heard at the door as everyone wondered if it was Naruto. Hashirama smiled and told whoever it was to come in. Suddenly a portal came out of nowhere as they saw a beautiful woman coming through it. Jiraiya was awesome, struck and made perverted sounds as he gazed at the beauty before him. He could see she was a lovely beauty with long white hair, black lipstick and soft skin. She was also wearing a kimono with pink flower petal designs on it. Lady Kagaya greetings Hashirama greeted. Greetings Hashirama, Mito, Madara Kagaya smiled before looking at the Namikazes with a glare. The Namikazes' pleasure. Hey, show my parents some respect, Menma growled. They are well-known and respected heroes. Little boys should learn to be quiet when the adults are speaking, she hissed as she let out her intent which suffocated them and brought them to their knees. Who the hell are you? Kushina demanded. My name is Kagaya Utsutsuki, soon to be Kagaya Senju. She answered the demanding Namikaze woman. You're marrying my grandfather? Tsunade asked. Of course not, I'm Naruto's first wife. Wife? They all shouted. But that's impossible. My twin daughters were going to be Naruto's first spouses due to the marriage contract. Gabrielle shouted. Besides, you're too old for the boy anyway. He needs someone his own age. Madara scoffed as if my student would associate himself with weak kunoichi such as you. Watch what you say, Uchiha. My village may be small, but it's powerful and don't you forget it. I only speak the truth, jungle girl. Also the marriage contract you have with Naruto I'm afraid isn't valid anymore. What nonsense do you speak, Uchiha? Minato challenged. Naruto is no longer biologically yours anymore, Madara grinned. What do you mean by that? Of course he's still our baby, Kushina shouted. What Madara means is that Naruto went through a genetic change. Like a metamorphosis. When you both abandoned him when he was born, the death goddess altered the boy's DNA to match the genetic code of myself and Hashirama. Meaning that the Namikaze clan genetic code no longer exists within his small body. Mito said arrogantly. You lie, no such thing can alter someone's DNA, Jiraiya shouted. Are you saying you know more than one of the three divine sisters do? Madara asked the Toad Sage. Are you doubting their abilities? Enough, Madara, don't waste your time with this man. His ability of rational thinking had long since died out from the countless beatings he got from the women he peeped on. Kagaya sighed. Hey, I'm over here, Jiraiya grunted, feeling insulted by the beautiful woman. You're not important, Kagaya blew him off. Jiraiya felt his whole world shatter at the very thing Kagaya said to him. Never had he been struck down emotionally by a woman since Tsunade refused to date when he was in his youth. Hey, you can't talk to a pervy sage like that, Menma shouted again. Suddenly the commotion was interrupted as they saw Naruto himself walking into the office. But on the back of the nine-tailed fox itself. Minato, Jiraiya and Kushina immediately went on the defensive. How is the fox free? Minato shouted. We set it free, Mito smirked. Why would you do that? Kushina yelled. Do you understand what you've unleashed upon the village? Oh, shut up you old broad, Naruto groaned, cleaning out his ear. Kurama is a part of the village. The villagers accept him. The fox has placed our son under his control. We must reseal the Kyuubi. It's obvious Naruto wasn't capable of keeping the soul of the Kyuubi at bay. We must reseal the beast into Menma. Jiraiya said, getting his sealing kit ready. The Kyuubi let out a roar which sent the family back against the wall. Naruto rubbed the fox's head to calm him down. Easy, Kurama, don't kill them yet. Naruto smiled. They were asking for it, you know that. I know the Kurama, but I want my turn before you get to play with them. Fine, but don't take too long. Alright, now that Kurama has calmed down, let's get down to business, shall we? Naruto said sternly, not in the mood for games. Ah. Naruto, I'm glad to see you actually have control over the beast, Minato said with that foxy grin that Naruto couldn't help but growl at. Look at you, so handsome already. You have your father's looks alright, the red-eyed woman gushed. But my red hair. Naruto then noticed a boy about his age with red hair like him, but spiky walk up to him. Hey San, my name is Menma, I'm your brother. I've waited a long time to meet you. Menma grinned. Now that we're together again we can finally fulfill the prophecy together and you can also fulfill your duty. What duty? Naruto asked. That's a simple son, Menma here will be head of the Senju, Uzumaki, and Namikaze clan. He's also going to engage Inoki's granddaughter and other powerful females of other nations to rebuild the clans. Minato smiled. You will become the head of the Namikaze side branch and will be married to my cousin's daughter. You will also marry Mei Terumi and the Nibi Jinchuriki of Kumo. This will bring peace between Iwa, Kumo and the Leaf Village. Plus you will be trained in minor ninjutsu and jinjutsu from your mother. You'll also be trained under Tsunade to become a support medic. That way you'll always be at your brother's side whenever he gets hurt. Plus you'll be engaged to my twin daughters, bringing the support and political power of Nadeshiko to the Leaf as well. Gabrielle smirked. So you're saying my duty is being a slave to my brother and the clan, like how the Hyuga clan operates. You're also saying that you want me to marry women I've never even met just for the sole purpose of increasing the power level with new powers and abilities within the clan. You won't be a slave to Naruto, Kushina laughed. You'll be a support ninja to protect the main branch of the Namikaze clan, along with your new wife. So it is like the Hyuga clan. Naruto scoffed. Thanks but no thanks. Everyone was shocked that Naruto was refusing such an opportunity. He was not only denying to be part of the Namikaze clan. But he was also denying to be married and court with many powerful females that many have strived to be bed with. Many men would kill to have what Naruto was being offered. But he was throwing it all away. What do you mean no, Minato gasped. Do you realize what you are refusing? Of course I do, besides I already have a wife to be and she's proven herself to me in more ways than one. Naruto smirked as he winked at Kagaya. But she's too old for you, Tsunade yelled. Says the 50-year-old broad who spread her legs for a younger man. Naruto smirked. Though with your wrinkly skin you're hiding under that, I'm surprised that Minato's father even bedded you at all. Madara snickered under his breath as he was trying hard not to laugh. Tsunade looked like she was about to bust a blood vessel. How dare this brat insult her like that? Once we return home I'm going to give you some common sense and make you learn to respect your betters. Tsunade growled, cracking her knuckles, wanting to pound the wise-ass kid. And I told you I'm not going anywhere. I'm happy here with the parents I have now. Besides, I don't carry a single genetic trait of the Namikaze clan. So therefore Minato has no biological claim over me. Minato was slowly getting a migraine. This wasn't what he had hoped. He was hoping that his son Naruto would jump at the chance to see his family again and welcome them into his life with open arms. But the Naruto before them was cold, calculating, and above all cold and ruthless to them. Kushina was trying hard to hold back her tears. Her son was denying all connections he had with them. She was on the same boat as Minato, believing that her son would welcome her with love and affection, only to receive coldness and anger. Mother, father, Uncle Madara, I'm sorry that the Namikaze clan has wasted our valuable time. Naruto spoke to his family. It's no trouble at all. Sachi Hashirama sighed, resting in his chair. You may leave now. Naruto nodded, but he jumped off the fox's back and embraced his parents. Mito and Hashirama hugged him back as the boy headed to the door, only for Kushina to wrap his arms around him. He grunted as he felt her embrace as she was on her knees. Sachi, please, I know you're angry for what we did. But we had no choice, please don't cut us out of your life. Kushina begged. Naruto sighed as he pried her arms off him. Kushina felt herself being pushed off as the boy looked down at her. He looked at her with emotionless eyes that showed neither hate or sympathy. It was complete apathy. If you truly loved me as you claimed you did, then you should have left me with a friend or have one of you stay back to raise me. But instead you chose to take Menma with you and leave me to fend for myself. You didn't abandon me out of love or for more safety. No, you left me out of obligation to your precious toad prophecy. Naruto said before his face turned into a snarl. I once respected you when I heard all the stories of you when I was little. I admired both you and your husband, but once I learned the truth from Kyuubi about what happened, that all went out the window. Now look at yourself begging at my feet like some old beggar on the street, it's pathetic. Sachi Kushina cried, grabbing his shoulder only for Naruto to slap it away. Please, I'm sorry. Don't touch me, Naruto growled. You honestly expect me to believe you're sorry? Naruto, that's enough. Kushina is your mother, Minato scolded. This woman is no mother of mine, she's no relative of mine either. Naruto yelled back. Please, Naruto. No, Kushina, you hurt me in the worst way possible that very day. Now it's my turn to return that in full. Naruto held down Kushina to the ground as he got on top of her. He quickly used Mokuton, which shocked Hashirama, to bind Kushina to the ground. Reaching into his pouch, he pulled out a kunai and pulled up Kushina's sleeve. Kushina panicked as she struggled as she screamed, feeling the kunai carve into her flesh. She screamed loudly as Naruto began to carve something into her arm. Minato and his family looked in pure horror as Naruto was cutting his former mother with a kunai. Minato and Jiraiya rushed to stop him, only for Madara to pin Jiraiya down and Tobirama pinning Minato. Tsunade charged forward to attack, only for Mito to deliver a punch, sending her back. Naruto suddenly stopped and admired his handiwork. He quickly got off of Kushina and stood up. He cleaned off the blood from his kunai and bowed to his parents. He then left the office. Kurama used a little of his chakra to prevent the wound from healing fully before he left as well. Kushina panted as she felt the Mokuton release her. She cried softly as she laid there in shock and sadness. She turned her gaze to the arm that Naruto cut. There, carved on her arm, was the word Bloodkin Deserter. She could only lay there in silence as Minato and Jiraiya were released and Menma rushed over to aid his mother. He could see each letter bled from her arm as Tsunade came over and tried to close the wound. However, the letters were forever scarred into her arm, and Tsunade knew that. Believing that the meeting had gone on long enough, Hashirama ordered Minato and his kin to leave and get settled in the Namikaze compound that was still in the village. Not wanting to anger the Hokage and make things worse, Minato and the others decided to retreat for the moment and figure out how to fix the situation another time. Minato took his wife into his arms as he and his son left the office and headed towards the Namikaze compound. Tsunade stayed back for a bit as she pierced her grandparents with a glare. You've made a terrible mistake, grandfather. Soon your interference will cause drastic changes and the whole world will suffer because of you. And despite what you say, I'm a proud Senju and I stand by my son no matter what. Tsunade spoke arrogantly. That boy will fulfill his duty and Menma will finally bring peace to the shinobi world. Suddenly a hand wrapped around her neck as Tobirama lifted her up. He had enough of her. I'm smarter than you, complex. Listen here, Tsunade, if any of you come near my nephew again, grandniece or no, I will kill you. The Nindain gritted his teeth, putting pressure on her throat, causing her to choke. He then threw her into Jiraiya. Now take your whore and leave the toad sage before I decide to sever your body and feed you to the animals. I'm sure the animals in the forest of death love toads. Jiraiya, fearing for his life, immediately took Tsunade and left the office. Tobirama snorted before turning to Hashirama. This won't be the last we see of them. Tobirama warned his brother. Hashirama sighed, "You're right about that, Tobirama, we will need to keep a close eye on them. I know Naruto can look after himself, especially with Kurama looking after him. But even he isn't a match for someone of their caliber," yet Mito spoke out. "Which is why I'm going to up Naruto's training. Perhaps you'd like to teach him as well, Tobirama." Perhaps he chuckled. "I just hope the boy is able to keep up with me during training. I'm sure he will know who's up for some sake." Hashirama smiled as everyone raised their hands. "Alright, let's head to that new bar Mito heard about." Everyone nodded their heads at the idea. Hashirama left a shadow clone to handle the paperwork. He then told his secretary to hold his meetings for a while. Once that was finished, they headed out to the new bar to share a drink together like the good old days. The morning soon came as the sunlight shone through the beautiful crafted windows of the upper level of the Senju mansion. Its rays shone bright upon the sleeping boy who was snuggling close to his lovely companion Kagaya. Mito and Hashirama couldn't understand why their son loved sleeping with Kagaya. But according to their son, he says he feels safe. Naruto fluttered his eyes open as he heard the sounds of birds chirping. With a groan, he sat up and let out a yawn. "I hate waking up early in the morning," he groaned, rubbing his eyes. He soon turned to see Kagaya still asleep. She looked so beautiful when she slept. Not wanting to disturb her, he started to get dressed. He put on a bright orange shirt with the Uzumaki symbol on it, along with black Hakama shorts. Once fully dressed, he walked over and kissed Kagaya's cheek before heading downstairs. He was suddenly greeted by a sweet smell of delicious eggs and bacon as he saw his mother cooking and his dad reading the morning paper. "Morning, Ka-san, morning, Tu-chan," Naruto greeted them happily. Mito turned her head to see her son up and at me so early. Normally he would sleep in like his father. Still, she placed the food on the table and took a seat next to her husband. "Well, good morning, Sachi, it's very rare to see you up so early in the morning. I can only guess since today is your first day of the academy." Mito chuckled. "Of course, Ka-san," Naruto said, taking a seat at the table. "I'm finally going to become a shinobi, and one day I'll take that hat from Tu-san." Hashirama chuckled at his son's motivation and his ambition to become the next. He knew that his son had the dream for it. But it took more than just ambition to be. The weight of the hat and the job it comes with is something that you must prepare yourself for. Ahahaha, you're many years too early to take the Hokage's hat, Sachi. But if you train hard and never give up, then I have no doubt that I'll one day pass the mantle of Hokage to you. The family soon began eating, and boy oh boy did Mito know how to cook. Her recipes were one of the best, heck, she even published them, and they sold off the shelves like crazy. Naruto was stuffing his face, which showed how much he loved his mother's cooking. "Naruto-chan, no stuffing your face, you'll choke," Mito scolded. Naruto let out a goofy laugh before swallowing. "Sorry, Ka-chan, I just love your cooking." "Well, that's very sweet, but you can still show proper table manners." "Ooh, oh come on, Mito-sama, let the boy have a little fun. I mean, you're only young once." Hashirama chuckled. This resulted in him receiving a bonk on the head by her ladle. Hashirama grunted, rubbing his head. Mito looked at him with her hair flowing in 9 strands resembling Kurama's tails. "Are you questioning my parenting skills, Hashirama?" Mito shouted. "And did you just hint at me that I'm old?" Sinking down in his chair, Hashirama held up his kitchen plate to shield himself from his wife's anger. Sure, he may be the god of all shinobi, but even he wouldn't risk arguing with his hot-blooded wife. Begging for mercy and apologizing quickly for his mistake, he was saved by a loud laugh. They noticed Kurama on the couch waking from his nap. "What an alarm clock, I wake up to the whining of the so-called god of shinobi, scared out of his wits by his own wife," Kurama said teasingly, making Hashirama steam with anger. Kurama stretched his limbs as he jumped off the couch and turned into his favorite form. A beautiful red-haired woman with long red hair, red eyes with black slits, a goddess-like body with a double E-size cup. The kitsune woman also wore a tight kimono that showed off her body shape. Kurama chose this form a lot to keep fangirls away from Naruto. The fox also loved this form despite him being male. But to him, he believes tailed beasts are not defined by gender and switch between the two anytime they want. She took her seat next to Naruto as she was served with some eggs and bacon, along with some rolls. Unlike Naruto, Kurama ate in a more sophisticated way. Similar to how royalty eats. "Kurama, I'm going to be busy at the Hokage's office with so many applicants for the academy, alliance contracts, and other papers that I wish I didn't have to sign. God, I hate paperwork. The more I finish, the more they multiply." Hashirama sighed in his hands. "If you want to save yourself from doing so much paperwork, why not just use multi-shadow clones and have them help you? That way you'll get it done twice as fast," Naruto suggested. Hashirama immediately slammed his head down on the table, rattling the silverware. Everyone could hear him muffin the word stupid over and over. How could the most powerful shinobi of his era forget about the many uses of shadow clones? It would seem all those years in the afterlife affected his brain cells. "Stupid. Stupid. Stupid," Hashirama shouted over and over. "How could I have forgotten that? Because you're a century-old fossil with fewer brain cells and your son is a natural-born genius with a good head on his shoulders. Kurama smirked. Not helping, the Hokage groaned. Come on Kurama, leave dad alone. Naruto scolded the fox. He's not an idiot. You can't expect him to remember something 90 years ago. Thank you Naruto, Hashirama sighed, leaning back in his chair. That's what moms are for. Hashirama soon sulked in his chair, sobbing that his son was agreeing with the fox about him being an idiot. Naruto and the others sweat-dropped at his reaction to what he said. Mito sighed in irritation, her husband always takes insults too seriously. Suddenly there was a knock on the door. Who could be at their house this early in the morning? Minato and his family arrived at the Senju compound, hoping to end this farce and retrieve Naruto. They were thankful that the gods had pity on Naruto and gave him a temporary family to raise him. But now that they were back the family's services would no longer be required. Plus they were hoping that by doing this then their relationship with the village would be restored. Since their return over 92% greeted them with glares and harsh whispers of insults. At first they didn't mind it, but soon they were overcharged for food and other merchandise. Along with the fact that many other food joints didn't allow them entrance. Of course Menma was treated differently as they didn't know if he was the same as his parents. After all, don't punish the child for the sins of their parents. So the villagers gave Menma a fair chance to prove to them he wasn't arrogant. However 2% of the village praised the return of the Namikaze family with open arms. Soon they all gathered at the front door as Minato knocked on the door. Minato had been planning on teaching his son his uncle's elemental and the side branch to jutsu styles. Since Naruto was going to lead the side branch he wanted to ensure his son would be powerful enough to aid Menma. Kushina was planning on teaching him Fuinjutsu and Kinjutsu, which would allow them to be closer and form a mother and son relationship. Tsunade however was planning on teaching Naruto medicine, since Menma didn't have the proper chakra control to use it. Although she was still peeved at the brat for mocking her and making fun of her age, she decided for the good of her family, she would put aside her pride. Jiraiya was going to train him to summon toads, despite the fact that unknown to him, Mito was going to have Naruto sign the White Tiger contract and that Kurama would let him sign the Fox contract. We have to get my son back Minato-kun. Kushina cried. Kushina-chan don't worry. It will be tough, but I'm sure Naruto will get used to it. Minato smiled. Suddenly the door opened and they saw Naruto standing before them. Naruto just looked at them with no smile on his face. They assumed that their son was still angry with them and decided to show it. Can I help you Namikaze-sama? Naruto asked. The Namikaze family was shocked. They thought that he was going to explode with anger or sick the Kyuubi on them. But he just greeted them with a respectful gesture. Hello Naruto, we hope we aren't intruding. But we need to talk to you Minato smiled. Mother, the Namikaze family is here Naruto called out to Mito. Mito, who was clearing some of the dishes, heard what Naruto said. She growled in irritation wondering what they could possibly want now. Send them to Naruto, let's see what they want. Mito called back. Naruto allowed them inside as the group entered the dining hall. Tsunade was shocked to see the old compound in such good shape after being deserted for so many years. Kushina was trying her best not to get into a confrontation with Mito, her old mentor. Jiraiya on the hand noticed next to Hashirama and noticed the goddess-like beauty next to him. The Toad Sannin's eyes popped out as he immediately got out his notebook and began taking notes. The said woman glared at her as she noticed that Jiraiya was staring at her and writing notes in his notebook. Jiraiya-san I hope you're not writing notes about me to put in your filthy smutty books are you? She growled. Wait what? Naruto said, grabbing the notebook from his hands. Hey, give that back, that's personal, Jiraiya shouted. Naruto read through the notebook and turned to glare at Jiraiya. The however was unfazed with the kid's glare and demanded his notebook back. Oh I'll give it back. Naruto growled as he walked over to the dining hall fireplace and threw it into the fire. Jiraiya screamed as his new work of Icha Icha Paradise went up in flames. He cried in tears as he sobbed about his hard work and research were now gone forever. Kushina and the other women didn't really care since they despised that novel. Now that the entertainment is over, what do you all want? We told you that Naruto is ours now and you have no legal bindings to him. Mito said harshly. We told you that Lady Shinigami replaced your DNA with ours, therefore making Naruto our son. That's a load of bullcrap, Tsunade shouted. And you know it. Now we understand that you were brought back to raise him and you did a fine job. But now it's time for Naruto to return to his real family. My real family is right here Lady Tsunade. Lord Minato and Lady Kushina had their chance and they blew it. I'm also protected by the laws of Konoha. So if Minato and Kushina really want me back then they shouldn't have left me in the first place. Naruto replied coldly. Naruto, we already told you the reason why we had to leave, Kushina sighed, getting a headache. It was for the betterment for the world yeah I heard. But you could have done it another way actually in a lot of ways. Kurama spoke up in his female voice. You could have left Naruto with Makoto since you were friends since you were kids. You could have had Tsunade stay back to raise him since she was his grandmother. You could have left him with any of the clans and you could have come to visit him once in a while. Or you could have taken him with you. Minato and Kushina understood they had many options and while many of them were good, they thought that if none of their enemies knew Naruto existed then he would be safe from all attempts of assassination. Yet they failed to understand that many of the clans were powerful in their own right and would have done anything to protect Naruto. Yet they failed to see that. If our enemies didn't know Naruto existed then he would be safe. Minato defended himself. But now that we're back we can finally be a family again. Hashirama stood up showing off his dominance for the first time in years. You seem to lack brain cells for someone who was a natural-born genius. Naruto is my son now. He's happy here and has been for the first 8 years of his life. So why pray tell should he leave parents that loved him, fed him, heard his first words, saw his first steps, and comforted him when he was scared or sad to someone who saw him more of a tool than a child? We never saw Naruto as such a thing. Kushina retorted. Really then what would you call it? Mito asked, crossing her arms. Kushina opened her mouth to speak, but no words seemed to escape her lips. Mito only nodded her head as she proved her point. Minato cleared his throat and stepped forward towards Naruto. Naruto, we understand that you've grown attached to Lady Mito and Lord Hashirama. We are thankful that they raised you while we were gone, but now it's time to come home. You can still come and visit them, but your duty is to your family. Jiraiya said firmly. Naruto stared up at him with cold eyes. How dare this man come into his house and tell him to leave his family for people who threw him away like some useless toy. I'm sorry Jiraiya-sama, but I'm happy here. My duty is to my father, Hashirama. I'm needed here. Naruto shook his head at them showing his refusal to leave. Naruto, this rebellious attitude is unbecoming of an amicus. Minato scolded him like a little kid. You're destined to perform a great service to the world of shinobi with your brother. Now please pack your things, we can start your training when we get home. Plus my cousin is there so you can get to know your future wife. It would appear you are hard of hearing Minato, my son is not going anywhere. Now I've tolerated your presence here long enough. Leave my home or I shall call the Anbu and have you executed for not only trying to kidnap a Hokage's heir, but also trespassing on my property. Hashirama released so much Kai. Say I do come with you, what could your clan possibly offer me other than enslavement and forced marriages? Naruto asked not to buy into their we miss you and want you back crap. Minato smiled at this opportunity. Simple my son, I can teach you the lightning elemental of my uncle that made him famous in the Second Great War. As well as the Namikaze Taijutsu style. I already have Kakashi-san to teach me Raiten. Naruto scoffed. Plus my mom and dad can teach me Senju and Uzumaki Taijutsu style to its full potential. Minato stuttered as he tried to think of something else. Kushina, seeing her husband was trying to control the situation, spoke her piece. I can teach you Fuinjutsu and the Uzumaki Kenjutsu style Raging Tide. Kushina smiled. We can bond over that and learn so much about each other. To get together as mother and son again. Naruto found attempting as Raging Tide was one of the powerful Kenjutsu styles of the Uzumaki clan. But it was the toughest style to learn. Naruto wasn't really interested in Kenjutsu as he had a staff like Hiruzen Jiji. Plus he already had a Fuinjutsu teacher, his mother, since she was one of the greatest sealing mistresses in all the nations. Sorry but I don't have the patience or the love of swordplay. And as for sealing I've got Mito Kachan, who is the greatest sealing mistress in existence. So sorry Kushina-sama, but I'll have to pass. I can teach you how to summon a kiddo, Jiraiya boasted. After all, the toads and slugs are two of the most powerful summonings in the world. Naruto and his parents sweat dropped at that. Apparently no one ever told the pervert that the toads and slugs were one of the top 15 most powerful summonings. Even Hashirama knew that the top 5 most powerful summons were the lions at number 5, the tigers at number 4, foxes at number 3, phoenixes at number 2, and dragons at number 1. Surely every summoner and their summoning clans know that. Forgive me Jiraiya-sama, but Mito Kachan is letting me sign the Uzumaki White Tiger contract and Kyuubi-sama is letting me sign the fox contract. Naruto grinned. So forgive me old hermit, but I must refuse the toads and slugs. I don't mean to insult them, they are powerful, I admit no doubt about it. But the foxes and tigers are one of the top 5 most powerful for a reason. Geez, since when did you become so smart? Jiraiya asked. From studying and reading you should try it sometime. Naruto answered. Well I can teach you medicine and my super strength. Surely you can't pass that up. I'm the world's best medic. Swan smirked with a boastful look on her face. Your skills are impressive Lady Tsunade, Naruto nodded. But I'm afraid that Kurama has you beat there. Yes Kurama may be made of chakra, but his knowledge of healing and medicines outdo yours. You're giving me too much credit, Kurama thought, watching it all play out. You're comparing Kyuubi's skill to mine. I've developed poisons that can kill. My skills are not to be criticized. Tsunade fumed. Jinchuriki maybe Hashirama butted in. But tailed beasts are a whole different thing. See, there is nothing you can offer me. If that's all you're willing to offer, then I suggest you leave now. I have to get ready for the academy and I don't want to be late because my so-called birth family can't take a simple no for an answer. Silence filled the room. The Namikaze family was outwitted by a mere 8-year-old child. Their plan was simple: to convince Naruto to come back, regain control of the village, train the boys, and save the ninja world. Why couldn't fate just let the prophecy come to fruition and let their sons do their duty? Seeing there was no way out, they decided to try something else. Minato took a scroll from his back pocket and tossed it to Naruto. Naruto, seeing Minto toss him a scroll, caught it in his hands. He unraveled it and noticed that it was a strange seal. There was a long list of what was inside it. It was also a letter from the first Namikaze side branch leader, Kanatajin Namikaze. Dear future Namikaze side branch leader, however, this letter proves that you are the future Namikaze side branch leader. I am Kanatajin Namikaze, and my duty was to protect the future of the Namikaze clan. In my time as leader, I've created many deadly seals that protected the clan for almost a century. I was known during the clan war era as the Lightning Flash, not just for my speed, but for my mastery in Raiden. In this scroll are all my works and research notes, along with all my lightning blade that earned me my nickname. Hopefully you can use and perhaps experiment with them to make them stronger or make your own creations. I have no doubt that already there will be many to continue my legacy. Glory be to the Namikaze clan. Kanatajin Namikaze, leader of the Namikaze clan side branch. Naruto looked at the scroll as the contents also had a list of all Katajins. From the sound of it, Naruto could see this man was truly a devoted clan member that went to great lengths to protect his family. However, on the other hand, this also showed him that this scroll was his obligation to follow in the man's footsteps. Naruto was about to lose his temper but decided against it and rolled up the scroll. The boy was silent as everyone waited to see what his reaction would be. Naruto turned towards the fireplace and in a flash threw the scroll into the fire. Minato gasped as he saw his ancestor's scroll thrown into the fire. Like a flash, Minato pushed Naruto aside and reached into the fireplace, ignoring the burns and blisters from the flames. Minato used the bottom of his robe-like jacket to put the flames out. Once the fire was extinguished, the scroll was severely damaged. Minato unrolled the scroll to find the letter part was okay, but the seals on the scroll were destroyed beyond repair. Katajin's research, his Raiden, and legendary lightning katana that made him the Lightning Flash was now lost forever. Minato's eyes filled with tears before turning to Naruto with a glare. You little turd, do you realize what you did? Katajin was a hero that many Namikazes after him respected and admired. His legacy that was passed down to future generations is now gone because of you. You could have been the next Lightning Flash. Minato shouted enraged. I did it because I've broken the final chains that chained me to you. I'm not an Namikaze, nor do I want to be one. I'm a Senju and an Uzumaki. Naruto declared proudly. I, Naruto Senju, hereby wash my hands of Minato and Kushina Namikaze. I hereby renounce their status as my parents. From now on they are strangers to me. Naruto, you can't mean that. Kushina covered her mouth trying to control her tears. I do, Kushina-san. I've detached myself from you. You gave me life and for that I thank you. But now this is where we part ways for good. I really do want to hate you. But what would be the point? The world is full of it already. Therefore I will be apathetic towards you and your family except for Menma. He may be arrogant, but that's thanks to you morons. So I'm willing to give him a chance. Well, this has been a fine morning now, do kindly leave before I call Anbu to arrest you, Hashirama seethed. Minato stood up and faced Hashirama. This isn't over. Naruto will be ours. Hashirama's only response was a kick to Minato's jewels as the yondaime squealed, clutching his precious balls. The Shodaime then picked him up by the neck and smirked. Try all you want. I love a good challenge. Hashirama chuckled darkly. See you again, Uo, and have a nice flight home. Minato wondered what he meant before he was raised into the air by Kurama via telekinesis as he was sent flying through the air and into the women's bathhouse. The women screamed as Minato was beaten by many angry naked women. Minato's screams and their girls' angry shouts told Kushina and company where he landed. Deciding to try again another time, they decided to back off for the time being. Jiraiya and the others bid the Senju family farewell as they went to rescue a beaten down Minato. A few weeks had passed as we found Hashirama was in his office going through the applicants of the academy students. Madara was next to him helping him sort them out. Looks like they had a great number of new students that would bring Konoha to a new height. However, one such application caught his eye. It was the new transfer student from Kumo. She was young with long pale blonde hair and black eyes. Not to mention she was from Matatabi. Yujito Nai came to the village as a transfer student and a peace offering ever since word spread that Hashirama was restored. The Raikage believed this would strengthen the ties between the village, but Hashirama didn't fully trust the man. Kumo had a history of seeking out new bloodlines, especially the. So there was no doubt that Kumo would seek to obtain the Mokuton. According to the girl's sheet, she was a gifted prodigy. She mastered all academies when she was 5 and mastered many E&D ranks, along with a few cranks. She had a powerful regenerative ability like all. She also gained the enhanced senses of a cat. Her taijutsu was C rank, her was D rank, and her ninjutsu was low B rank at best. She reminded him of his wife, who was also a prodigy at a young age. She was also currently living with Danzo as her temporary guardian. Looks like we will be having a lot of good applicants. The heirs of our fellow clans and our new transfer student. Hashirama smiled while going through the other papers. You know as well as I do that has been at a thin line with Konoha since the Second Ninja War. I don't trust that bastard as far as I can throw him. You know they've sought out many bloodlines from this village. Madara said coldly. I have a feeling that if they come here to sign the peace treaty they will try it again. Hashirama sighed as he couldn't argue with Madara's statement. But if peace was to be restored they had to take a chance. However, he would strengthen security during the treaty signing. He thought having Tobirama and Madara would be enough security, but it wouldn't hurt to post a few more men. The door opened as Minato and Kushina walked in. They were dressed in shinobi attire that showed their status as. Minato's attire consisted of a standard Konoha uniform with 2 bands on both of his sleeves, a green flak jacket, blue forehead protector, and blue sandals. His wife Kushina's attire consisted of a standard Konoha flak jacket over a black short-sleeved shirt and black form-fitting pants that reached her calves. She wore a blue forehead protector with her hair tied up in a high ponytail and strands at the sides of her face. They reported for their first mission since they've been back. Ever since their last failed attempt to convince Naruto to come home. They've become more focused on Menma to train him for his role as Child of Prophecy. Menma was strong for his age. They knew that and truly believed once both boys graduate they could have them both on the same team. At least that's what they were hoping. Mostly Kushina, as she was a feared kunoichi throughout the nations. Plus she had the ability to contain Menma if he ever went berserk. Minato and Kushina reporting for our first mission, Lord First, Minato said respectfully. I have a special mission for both of you. The ambassador from Kumo is coming here tomorrow to sign the peace treaty between our villages. Now I understand that things have been very shady with Kumo. Of course they have. Kushina shouted. Those bastards tried to kidnap me when I was a little girl. Kushina. Hashirama yelled. I understand your anger, but I will not let you lose your cool. Kushina seethed. But now as extra security I want you to secretly watch the ambassador. I don't fully trust them to not try to kidnap someone from any of the clans, especially the Hyuga clan. Therefore I'm placing you Kushina to be stationed at the Hyuga compound. As for Minato, since you're known as the Yellow Flash, you'll be the ambassador's escort. Therefore you will tag him with your special seal, so you'll be able to catch him if he does in fact kidnap someone. They nodded as they took the scroll from Hashirama. However, Hashirama glared at them and told them that if they fail in their mission, they will be stuck doing D-rank missions for the next year, with no pay at all. Seeing as they were getting the message, they promised they would not fail. Before they left, Minato asked Hashirama about Naruto. Okage-sama, how is Naruto? I heard he's quite the powerhouse at his age. Minato asked. He's fine, Minato, Hashirama groaned. And yes, he's quite strong for his age. Far greater than many others in his age group. Why do you ask? We were hoping when Naruto graduates he could be placed on a team with Menma with me, as their sensei, Kushina asked with a hope in her tone. You know I can't promise that. As I must abide by the rules I set when I first became Hokage. I can't show favoritism even to my own son. Naruto and Menma will be placed on teams that fit their strengths, weaknesses, and abilities. But it's a perfect way to rekindle with Naruto. Kushina begged. Naruto will decide if he wants to rekindle with you. But if you keep trying to force your way into his life, it will only make him push you back more. Be lucky Naruto didn't disown you. What did you say? Kushina covered her mouth, tears flowing. Naruto believes in the code of the Uzumaki. He will never forgive you for what you did. But he refuses to abandon you as you are still his blood kin. But he carved a blood kin deserter into my arm and renounced me as his mother and family member. Kushina argued. Yes, family member, but he never said clan member. Madara spoke up. Naruto has shown true Uzumaki devotion. He still called you a clan member regardless of your crime. So be thankful for that. Minato and Kushina were silent for a minute as they felt hope again. Naruto hadn't fully disowned them as he still considered them clan members. Maybe there was a chance to rekindle their relationship. They vowed to make things right with Naruto even if it killed them. Bowing their heads, they left the office. Madara knew that their desperation for redemption from their former son would lead to an even greater disaster. Sensing his distress, Hashirama placed a hand on his shoulder. I know you're overprotective of my son, but like I said before, Naruto can handle himself. Madara could only smile at that. Of course the little fuzzball would be okay. The boy had proven he can take care of himself, but that still didn't turn off his feeling of protecting his godson. Madara was like a mother wolf that protects her cub. Konoha Academy. Naruto was walking to the academy with his mother and Uncle Tobirama. Tobirama's return also spread like wildfire throughout the village. The village never felt more safe than ever now with both Senju brothers to protect them. Naruto was super excited to start the academy and to become a ninja and one day take the hat from his dad. He was dressed in a white battle kimono which was based off and modified from Kagaya's sage robe design, which would help him improve his speed and movement in battle. His red hair had gotten a bit longer as it reached to his waist but was tied in a ponytail. The villagers bowed their heads and waved to the family, paying their respect, which they kindly returned. On their way to the academy, Naruto stopped when he heard a loud crash and noticed Mibuyuki Haruno tripped and hit the ground, spilling her groceries. She groaned in pain as she sat up and tried to pick up the spilled food. Immediately he rushed over to her to see if she was okay. "Madam Haruno, are you alright?" he asked. "Oh, Naruto-sama, I'm fine, I just tripped, that's all," she groaned. Naruto reached down trying to help her up as best he could. Mibuyuki was grateful the boy was trying to help her, but she was a bit too heavy for him to lift up. However, as luck would badly have it, a certain pink-haired banshee came running towards them. "Hey, how dare you hurt my mother? You tripped her." Sakura screeched loudly, making Naruto cover his ears. Naruto, shocked at the accusation, spoke up in his defense. "What? No, I didn't trip her. I saw her fall and was trying to help her back to her feet." That answer resulted with a slap across the face. Naruto held his cheek as everyone around them gasped. Sakura glared down at Naruto with hateful cold eyes. "Yeah, right. You made her fall, you're just like what other people say you are. You're nothing more than a demon. You're no better than that fox demon you carry inside of you. Nobody wants you here, do us a favor and go die in the ditch." Naruto felt those words pierce his heart. He's heard many insults from the villagers that hate him and he was used to it. However, hearing from a girl he secretly had a crush on hurt him badly. Mibuyuki, hearing what her daughter said, became infuriated as she screamed at her daughter. "Sakura Haruno, apologize this instant." Mibuyuki shouted, shocking Sakura. "Apologize? But mom, he's a demon. He's the reason dad is dead." Sakura shouted back. There's a difference." Mibuyuki argued back. "Kyuubi and Naruto are two separate beings. Now you will apologize to this instant, young lady. Also, when you get back from the academy today, I am going to teach you some respect, young lady." "I say she needs a lot of it," Tobirama growled as Naruto turned around. "Uncle Tori." Naruto smiled. "You alright?" "Yes uncle, I'm fine." Tobirama walked over to Mibuyuki and held out his hand, helping her to her feet. "Oh, thank you Lord Tobirama, Lord Naruto." She thanked them. "Please call me Naruto, I don't like having my lord title being used as it makes me feel like I'm above everyone else." Naruto blushed a bit. "Such a kind boy with a good heart. I see your parents have raised you well." She chuckled and stumbled to her feet. "Please take this." She offered Naruto an apple from her bag. "Oh, thank you, but I can't accept it." Naruto replied shyly. "Oh please, I insist, it's the least I can do to thank you." She begged. "Well, alright." Naruto smiled while taking the apple. "Thank you." "No my boy, thank you for taking time to help a lady." She smiled before dragging her daughter to the academy. "You did a good thing, Naruto." Tobirama smiled. "I couldn't just leave her like that." Naruto sighed. "That wouldn't be right to let a sweet lady just lay there." Spoken like a true hero. Tobirama ruffled his hair. "Come on, your mother is waiting for us." Naruto nodded as they headed back down the road to meet up with Mito, who was at the front of the academy. Mito noticed them and asked them what took them so long. Tobirama told her about how Naruto helped an old lady who fell and hurt herself. Mito turned to her son, who nodded, which had confirmed his story. "That was a nice thing you did, Sachi." Mito praised him. "Thank you, Ka-chan." Naruto smiled. "Well then, come on, I don't want my son to be late on his first day." Naruto nodded as he hugged and kissed mother goodbye and high-fived Tobirama. He followed the batch of students to the classroom where their sensei Iruka Yamino greeted them. Naruto also noticed many of his friends were there. Kiba, heir to the Inuzuka clan and a brash kid with an alpha male complex. But on the inside he was as soft as a newborn puppy, all bark and no bite most of the time. Sasuke Uchiha, his brother in arms and closest friend since childhood. Satsuki Uchiha, his #1 fangirl that dreams of marrying him. He swears that she is worse than Sakura Haruno, Sasuke's #1 fangirl. Speaking of the Banshee, she was sitting next to Satsuki. She was one of the students that hated Naruto and blamed him and the Ninetales for her father's death. She also hated him for corrupting her mother. In back of Sakura was Ino Yamanaka, heiress of the Yamanaka clan, Shikamaru Nara, heir to the Nara clan, and Akamichi, heir to the Akamichi clan. On the left side are Shino Aburam of the Aburam clan, Hinata Hyuga of the Hyuga clan, Niji Utsutsuki, second heir to the Utsutsuki clan, Rock Lee, and Tenten in their final year at the academy. Sitting in back of them was Menma Namikaze. He looked exactly like Minato, from the gold spiky hair to the heart-shaped face of his mother. All the clan heirs and many civilian students were there. His eyes soon rested on Yujiro Nai, the transfer student that was sent by Kumo as a peace offering. He remembered meeting her, and he liked her not for her beauty or her power. No, he liked her for her personality and sense of humor. He waved to her, which she noticed. She blushed while waving back. They had grown very close ever since her arrival to the village and became very good friends. Even though they were arranged to be wed, Naruto had treated her like a human being instead of an arranged wife. Naruto immediately took his seat next to her. Iruka is looked over by his new class, students from many of the shinobi clans and many civilian students. However, he also heard the Senju and Namikaze heir was going to be in his class. He heard about both families' reputation and their training they received from her parents. He noticed Naruto, who looked a lot like Lady Mito, but with some traits of Lord First. He heard the Senju heir was more powerful than his age group. But he also heard the boy was modest and loved to work hard. He also noticed that he was close to Yujiro Nai, the transfer. He noticed Menma, son of Lord Fourth and Lady Kushina. Though he hated the Namikaze for what they did, he couldn't hate Menma as he had nothing to be blamed for. One thing for sure, he had his work cut out for him. Welcome to the academy. My name is Iruka Yamino, and I will be your sensei for the duration of your time here. Iruka smiled. Why don't you introduce yourself to the class so we can get to know you better? Also, I have Lady Kagaya with me, as she will take over as head of the academy to ensure we produce actual shinobi and kunoichi. He motioned to the woman who sat next to him. She was dressed in an elite Anbu uniform. She also had in her lap a wolf mask with black lines around the eyes. She was known as the Akami Megami Aka wolf goddess. Her hair was in a long ponytail and was shiny as silver. She waved to everyone but blew a kiss at Naruto, who blushed, making a quiet growl. Everyone began to greet the junior or senior students, telling them about their likes, dislikes, and their dreams. Some had dreams of being legendary shinobi, while others dreamed of being Hokage. The next one to introduce themselves was Menma Namikaze. He stood at a height of 4 feet 5 inches tall, and he wore black shorts and a white t-shirt with a Uzumaki spiral on the back of it. He greeted everyone and smiled. My name is Menma Namikaze. I'm 6 years old and I like my family, Konoha, and clan. I love learning new things and ramen. My dislikes waiting for ramen to cook, emos, a certain red-haired woman. He looked at Naruto before turning back to. My dream is to become, but also my dream is to restore my clan and to make a certain someone pay. Naruto knew that Menma was talking about his mother Mito. He heard that his mother was ordered to eliminate the Namikaze clan to prevent them from using him for breeding purposes. Naruto believed his mother's actions were justified. I mean, would you allow someone to use your baby as a bloodline breeding stallion? But he also understood his big brother's anger, but that didn't mean he would allow him to kill his mother. Okay, then Iruka sweated as he was one of the very few who heard about the Namikaze clan massacre. Looks like we got ourselves an avenger here. I hope no. I pray that Kami Menma won't do anything stupid. Naruto cleared his throat as he decided to introduce himself next. I'm Naruto Senju. I'm 6 years old. My hobbies are Kurama, Kagaya-chan, Kitty-chan, foxes, the moon, and ramen. I dislike Lord and Lady Kushina, Lady Tsunade, and Jiraiya for his filthy books that degrade women in such a way I find absolutely abominable. I hate rapists and predators who prey on innocents. My dream is to restore the world to a peaceful era and to be as strong as Daddy and Uncle Madara. Iruka nodded as he smiled. The kid truly had big ambitions, especially wanting to be as strong as his parents and uncle. Alright, thank you Naruto, and Ms. Nai, how about you go first? Alright, my name is Yujiro Nai. I'm 7 years old and I like my village, cats, Matatabi, Foxy-kun Naruto, cooking, and castrating men who annoy me. My dislikes are rapists, a certain family, and secretly my rakeage for forcing me to become against my will. My dream is to marry my Foxy-kun and be the dominant wife in his harem. Kagaya narrowed her eyes on the young girl. The little brat actually thought she was going to be Naruto's head wife. Ooh, oh, she was going to show her when she's old enough to have sex that no one is going to lead the harem but her. Kagaya always had a superiority complex when it came to sex, and she wanted to ensure only the worthiest of women would bed him. Yujiro noticed Kagaya looked pissed off as she gave her the stink eye, making her silently fume. Naruto, noticing it, groaned as his face palmed, shaking his head. Why was he cursed to be so desirable? After the rest of the introductions were finished, the class was now in session. It started with a basic curriculum, much to the disgust of Naruto. His uncle Tobirama told him that the academy's academics the former civilian council had chosen were utter bullshit that wouldn't even help you on the battlefield. However, despite that, the best part was when it was time for the battle portion of the day. Taijutsu spars was the most fun for Naruto because she was facing Menma. He wanted to see just how much Menma learned from his parents and the 1, 2, 3. Hajime. Menma got into the hummingbird stance as he rushed at full speed. But Naruto expected this. He could clearly see Menma rushed in rashly and was acting upon only power and speed. He immediately sidestepped and tripped him. Menma caught himself as he delivered a punch aimed for his chest which Naruto blocked with his elbow. Naruto was soon swung off his balance by a low kick falling on his back as Menma swung a punch down only for Naruto to roll out of the way. Naruto smirked as he was impressed. "Well, I must say your parents taught you well. Your speed is incredible and your use of the hummingbird style is truly impressive." Naruto praised him. "But let's see how you handle this as." Naruto dove in the whirlpool Taijutsu style as he vanished from sight, making the crowd gasp as Naruto appeared behind Menma. Menma immediately countered the punch that was aimed for him but was kicked back a few feet. Menma grunted feeling the power behind the kick. Naruto-san charged forward, not letting him recover, delivering kicks at his waist, chest, and his face kicking him against the metal fence. Menma fell to one knee as he growled at Naruto. "I won't lose, not this time." He started leaking red chakra which everyone knew what that was. His eyes turned slits and his teeth sharpened. He let out a roar as he charged extremely fast. Naruto quickly dodged a swipe of his sharp finger-like claws. Damn, he succumbed to his anger that quickly. Naruto thought to himself. Looks like there is no choice. I have to find a way to calm him down. Naruto was pushed back against the fence pretty hard, grunting from the pain of the impact. Naruto stood up as he went through hand signs that his father taught him. "Wood style. Cage restraint," he shouted. Soon wood sprouted around Menma like a cage, and the wooden bars sprouted more strands of wood that wrapped around him, contracting him. Menma struggled as the chakra began to be sucked into the wood which allowed Naruto to absorb the chakra. "If only I still had Kurama in me, it would be a big help," Naruto groaned softly. Naruto was only able to absorb 10% of the Kyuubi's chakra from Menma before the Namikaze air collapsed. Naruto panted as he was released. He soon collapsed a few minutes afterwards. Kagaya immediately rushed both boys to the hospital as the students were sent home early. Konoha Hospital. Room 204. Menma Pav. I yawned as I woke up and found myself in a comfy hospital bed. Looking out the window, I saw it was a bit cloudy. Upon realizing I was in a hospital, I began to remember how I got there. Suddenly I remembered that I was sparring with my little brother, and then I remember losing my temper, and soon. Ooh, oh god, I lost control of the Nine Tails. Ooh, oh my god, Naruto, I hope I didn't kill him. I'd never forgive myself. Quickly throwing off the covers, I ran out of room to the receptionist in the lobby, having been to the hospital many times before back home. "Excuse me?" I asked the receptionist. "Which room is Naruto in?" "Naruto-sama is in room 504, Lord Menma," she told me. I thanked her as I rushed up to the 5th floor despite my small injuries. Upon reaching the room, I slowly opened the door to see Naruto resting in the bed with small parts of his body bandaged. He didn't look beaten up at all. I guess he had regenerative abilities like me. I gazed upon my brother's sleeping face as I felt a pang of guilt. "I don't know if you can hear me, Naruto. But I know you can. I'm sorry I lost control of myself. I could have almost killed you. If that happened, I'd never forgive myself. I know you and my family don't see eye to eye, but I would like to at least be part of your life. I won't force you to leave the family you already have. I can see that Lord and Lady Senju make you happy. I would be a bastard for taking that away from you. For what it's worth, little brother, I'm sorry. I hope you'll still consider me as your big brother." I leaned down and gave him a kiss on the forehead before leaving before my parents found out I went AWOL in the hospital. Normal Pav. Naruto opened his eyes slowly as soon as Menma left. He wasn't really out cold, he was just resting a bit as an injury like this was nothing compared to the sparring matches with Madara or Kurama. However, a small tear ran down Naruto's cheek as he let out a small smile after hearing his brother's words. He found no deceit in these words, and he felt pure remorse and love from it. "I already have Menma." Menma headed towards the door and gripped the handle when he heard a voice telling him to stop. He slowly turned his head to see Naruto turning his head towards him. He could see a smile upon his fair, gentle face. His eyes were showing amounts of kindness with no amount of disdain and anger like he did the last time they met. Releasing the handle, Menma walked towards the bed. His brother slowly sat up, grunting a bit. "I knew you could hear me," Menma chuckled. "Like I said before, I'm sorry that I lost control of the Nine Tails. I don't know what went wrong. Didn't your parents ever train you to control it?" Naruto asked. "Surely with Kushina being a former, you would have been trained to control it." Menma felt a little embarrassed, but he had to agree with Naruto. He wasn't trained in the basics of controlling a tailed beast's chakra yet. What's the point of having a if they can't even control their power? "No, I haven't reached that level of training yet. My parents taught me the basics first before moving on to ninjutsu and other stuff. I mastered low rank and I was good at taijutsu. My few ninjutsu skills suck balls, and I suck at it. And yet even after all that training, they didn't teach you to unlock the Kyuubi's chakra. Well, according to Dad, I needed to train my body before allowing the Kyuubi's chakra to flood my body." Menma sighed. "He always said it takes a power being to wield power. You took that kind of advice from your father instead of asking advice from the actual family." Naruto facepalm. I guess so, Menma chuckled nervously. You're an idiot. It takes more than just training your body. First, you need to train your mind as well as your body. A tailed beast is known to be very manipulative and cunning. If you lack a strong mind, then you lack the mental strength to combat their influence. Second, you need to have perfect chakra control. Brahma's chakra is potent and highly acidic. If your chakra control severely lacks, then the chakra can cause some major bodily harm, or worse, you can lose yourself to it and go berserk. Naruto explained. Right, and look what happened, I nearly killed you. I'm a monster, Menma cried, trying to wipe his eyes. Sensing his brother's distress, he patted the bed, motioning his brother to sit. Taking the invitation, Menma sat down close to him. Naruto placed a hand on his shoulder with a firm but gentle grip. Menma, look at me, Naruto said softly. Menma looked up with his sad and filled eyes to gaze into Naruto's light blue ones. You're not a monster. You just lost control when you gave into your anger. You weren't yourself. Naruto explained, trying to ease his pain. Exactly, I wasn't myself. Menma shouted. What if I end up hurting the ones I care about again? I could hurt mom, dad, or anyone in the village. No is perfect. But if you truly want to ensure that you don't lose control again, then get off your ass, go home, and demand training from your parents. The only ones to blame are your parents, who should have trained you from the start. But I don't want to hurt anyone again. He sniffled. I'm afraid to use this power again. Naruto wiped his brother's tears with his thumbs and held his face in his hands. Menma sniffled again, his tears running in I'm style as he wrapped his arms around his brother. Naruto ran his hand through Menma's hair, letting him let out all of his pain and sadness. A word of advice, brother, to combat a powerful source of chakra like Kurama's. We must fill ourselves with love. Love is the only thing powerful enough to combat the chakra's malicious nature. Naruto said gently, still running his hands through Menma's hair. Menma slowly looked up at his brother. He was confused at Naruto's attitude towards him. Even after how he acted towards him when they first met in the Hokage's office. Naruto, why are you so forgiving towards me? I thought you hated me like you do my parents. Naruto understood Menma's question. True, he hated Minato and Kushina for abandoning him for a prophecy. But he couldn't bring himself to hate his brother. He believed that Menma was also a victim in this. I mean, sure, he was one of the reasons they left, but not the main reason. I mean, how could an infant be the cause of his abandonment? He may have held hatred for Menma once before. But after today, he knew Menma truly was remorseful for his actions. Which separated him from his power-greedy parents. I will admit that I felt hatred for you once. You became their main priority and I became the extra baggage. But I soon came to realize that it wasn't fair to blame you for something that you had no knowledge of. Your parents abandoned me thinking that I would be safe here without taking into consideration the mental state of the people who lost loved ones in the Kyuubi attack. You don't hate me? Menma whispered, clutching him tighter. No, I don't, Naruto answered as he clutched his brother close to him. After a brief moment, he released Menma from the hug. Menma sat up as he pulled off the blankets and stood up. He stretched his muscles a bit as he felt fine as a fiddle. Then the nurse came in to check up on him and was shocked to see him fully recovered and out of bed. Young Lord Senju, you're not supposed to be out of bed. You couldn't have recovered that fast. The nurse asked, shocked. As you can see, I am perfectly fine. You forget my Uzumaki regeneration and my healing factor of being a former speed up my recovery. Naruto gave a goofy grin. Have my parents visited me at all in the hospital? The nurse quickly checked the visitor's log and nodded. Yes, Naruto-sama. Your parents visited you twice today. Lady Mito was so worried about you. I had never seen her so worried in my life. After she visited you a few hours ago, she looked like she was going to kill someone. Menma gulped as he had a feeling that someone was him. Since it was him that attacked Naruto. Naruto was sweat dropping as he knew his mom was pretty overprotective. He remembered a time when a man tried to sell him a cheap knockoff toy. His mother beat the man's ass so badly for trying to scam him. His mother was a real mother wolf. Thank you, nurse, but seeing as I am okay. Am I free to leave? Seeing as there was no injury she could see and the boy looked perfectly healed. She couldn't help but sign the release papers for Naruto to leave early. Thanking her, Naruto asked Menma if he wanted to head out for some lunch to get to know each other better as brothers. Menma wanted nothing more than that, nodding his head excitedly. Konoha downtown district, Tsunade Pav. I was enjoying my day so far. I was hanging out at my favorite local bar, the Golden Dragon, with my old teammate Jiraiya and my son Minato. The bar was filled with people. Guys playing billiards, girls dancing on stage, much to my perverted teammate's face. I could see the perverted look in his eyes. That idiot couldn't even go a day without staring at a beautiful woman. Well, at least it wasn't me this time. The bartender pouring us a drink was an old friend of mine. Hachi Kazama, son of the owner and big boss himself, Daichi Kazama. Hey Tsunade, it's been a while since you've come to drink at my bar, Hachi cackled, pouring me a drink. What can I say, I had family business to take care of, I laughed, chugging down my drink in an instant. Damn, that's good sake, hit me again. You sure know how to hold your drink. So what brings you back to the village so early? I thought you guys weren't going to be back for 13 years. Hachi asked. Well, I won't go into details, but a certain situation came up. I told him, not wanting to reveal more. Hey, whatever, it's your business, Tsunade. The bartender left to tend to other customers as I reached out and grabbed a whole bottle of sake. I needed a large drink to make me forget about a certain deed. Damn, that brat gave me such a migraine after our encounter. That brat had the nerve to insult me, make fun of my medical skills. And even had the gall to bring up my age. I chugged down the bottle like a madwoman. After a large gulp I slammed the bottle down. Jiraiya and Minato take notice of me overdoing it. Hey Tsunade, home is easy there. You don't want to end up drunk again. Said Jiraiya. I scoffed as he tried to take away my bottle as I swatted his hand away. My son gave me a look which was the same look he gave me when I was drunk off my ass and started a bar fight a few days before we left for the fire capital. I nearly got in trouble with the owner and had to pay for the damages. Mother, please control your drinking, we don't want a repeat of last time when you started a bar fight. Ooh, oh, come off it, Minato, you know very well those men started the fight when they thought I was an easy score for sex. I growled softly, taking another gulp of sake. Besides, I learned my lesson. Now let me enjoy my drink. Normal Pav. It was now getting late in the afternoon and yep, you guessed it. Tsunade was once again drunk off her ass. Her breath smelled like sake and she could barely even walk. The bartender had to cut her off because she had her 23rd glass of sake. Of course this enraged her as she believed she didn't have enough. But the bartender stood firm in his decision to cut her off. Seeing there was no way to convince him, she tried another approach. Leaning over the counter, she revealed her cleavage, making her large D-cup breasts pop out. Jiraiya screamed as he flew back with a nosebleed. Minato could only groan knowing this wasn't going to end well, shaking her breasts in the man's face. She hoped her seductive nature would get him to change his mind. However, unknown to her, the man was a happily married man and he didn't take kindly to people who would seduce him for free benefits, free drinks, or free anything. He immediately pressed a button to call the security Anbu that his father hired in case of emergencies. I'm sorry, Lady Tsunade, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to leave now. You've had enough drinks for today. He stuttered. Tsunade groaned as she slammed her fist into the counter, leaving a spiderweb crack in it. She climbed over the corner and grabbed the man by his shirt and gripped her fist tightly, about to punch him. Listen here, pal. She slurred. I tried to be nice, I even offered you a chance to peek at my beautiful body. She ripped off her shirt, revealing her full naked chest, making so many men have the same reaction as Jiraiya. Luckily the Anbu weren't affected by it and moved to the restrained Tsunade. You still deny me a drink? Looks like I need to teach you some manners. She raised her fist to punch him. Hey, what's going on? She yelled as she felt her hands being tied behind her back. Do you know who you're messing with? Hands off me, I'm Lady Tsunade of the Senju clan. Lady Tsunade, you are under arrest for assault and prostitution. Anbu Bear stated firmly. You are to be held in the local jail center until you are released on bail. Said Anbu Hawk. Tsunade was then hauled out of the bar kicking and screaming. Minato slammed his head on the counter in embarrassment. His sensei Jiraiya was too drunk and Lady was happy to even care. Now he had to go and file for his mother's release. He just couldn't catch a break. For once he just wanted to have a normal day with his family without any trouble. Was that so much to ask? Meanwhile Naruto was leaving the hospital with Menma. The villagers greeted Naruto with warm greetings and smiles. Menma got some smiles, but most were still unsure about him given his parents' reputation. Menma tried his best to ignore some of the glares he was getting. Naruto called out to him, telling him to hurry up so they could make it to Ichiraku's. Not waiting for an answer, Menma immediately dashed towards him. Come on, Ichiraku is on me. Naruto offered. Thanks little brother, but I think I should be treating you. You know it almost killed you during class. Hey, don't look a gift horse in the mouth. You're not going to let me treat you, are you? Menma sweat dropped. Nope. Naruto grinned. Now come on. The two boys rushed down the street, hoping to get to the ramen stand before they closed. Tonight was the Leaf Music Festival, so many businesses were going to close for the occasion. Taking a sharp turn around a corner through an alley, they noticed the ramen stand was a few feet away. Naruto could smell the ramen's sweet aroma. Its delicious flavor, scrumptious delicious noodles, and tender meat. Ooh, it was driving him crazy. He walked only a few steps as he heard a loud crash from 2 buildings down on his left. What he saw was something he never thought possible. There, being restrained by the police force, was none other than Tsunade herself. This was too good for Naruto to pass up. Looks like he would be getting a show before lunch. He soon also noticed Madara being led by 2 police officers. He could see Madara glaring down at the slug princess. Wanting to know more, Naruto told Menma to wait at the stand as he rushed over to meet his uncle. Well, Tsunade, looks like the law finally caught up with you. Madara sneered. That chance you can't hold me for long. Besides, I was just having a drink and making conversation. Tsunade scoffed. You mean with your fists and showing off your breasts? You tried to seduce a married man into buying you more sake. Madara groaned. Wow, what do you know? Naruto chuckled. Madara turned his head to see his godson standing there. He didn't even see him coming. Naruto, what are you doing here? I thought you were in the hospital. I was released, uncle. You know my healing factor rivals that of a tailed beast. Naruto boasted. Also, I was heading to Ichiraku Ramen when I noticed Lady Tsuan being hauled into the precinct. What happened? Lady Tsunade was causing a ruckus at the Golden Dragon and using naughty means to get him to buy her more sake. He refused and she lost it. Anbu Hawk answered. Naruto looked at Tsunade and could see from her expression and drunken state that Anbu was telling the truth. He could see the slug princess was trying to plead her case that she wasn't guilty of any crime. She said she was just having a good time at her favorite bar. Arrested for prostitution, I can't believe it, Naruto snapped at Tsunade. Hey you tomato-haired runt, I'm innocent of what they have accused me of, Tsuan retorted. I know that, I can't believe these idiots would think any man would pay money to sleep with you. Naruto replied, making the slug princess gasp, and Madara covered his laughter. Or in your case Tsunade, it would be necrophilia with your old shriveled body and fake breasts implants. Tsunade's mouth opened wide with shock and Madara fell back clutching his sides with laughter. Anbu could tell that Naruto has been hanging around Madara too much. The slug princess roared as she struggled against the Anbu's grip so she could give the brat a full beat down. That's it, I'm going to pound that brat's face in. Swan growled, struggling against Anbu's grip. He's going to be black and blue and less of a man when I'm through with him. Really, Naruto? A voice called out. Naruto turned around to see Kakashi reading his orange book. You can't go one day without insulting Tsunade. Whatever happened to treating your superiors with respect? Oh, don't worry, Kakashi. Tsunade still has my respect as a medical master and elixir crafter. I just like to get a rouse out of her every once in a while. He chuckled as he noticed a clock on the precinct building. Ooh, oh crap, I got to meet Menma at Ichiraku, catch you later Kakashi, bye Uncle Madara. Ooh, oh, and make sure to behave yourself, Lady Tsunade, and a word of advice. Date someone your age, I heard the great Toad Sage is the perfect age for you. Try him, bye. Tsunade was soon dragged into the police station by 6 officers to keep her from chasing down the Senju heir and beating him to a pulp. She swore revenge on the brat as she was dragged inside. Kakashi, watching the whole thing, groaned. He hoped Naruto would grow out of his roasting phase and become more mature like his parents. But hey, you're only young one, so you better enjoy it while you can. But another thing confused him. Since when was Naruto on friendly terms with Menma? Back at Ichiraku Ramen, Menma was looking over the menu wondering what he should get while waiting for Naruto. AM placed a glass of water in front of him. She greeted him with a warm smile. Hello Menma, what can I get for you? AM smiled brightly. I'll have 1 small miso ramen please if that's okay. He asked. Certainly, coming right up, she giggled. Dad. We got an order for a small miso ramen. Coming right up, Tucci yelled as he began cooking. Make that 2 old men, Naruto said, taking his seat. Oh Naruto, welcome back. AM smiled, giving her precious little brother a hug. Thanks AM Ni-chan, Naruto chuckled warmly. You're back Naruto, what happened? Menma asked, taking a sip of his water. Oh, your grandmother got arrested for assault and prostitution. Say what now? Menma sputtered, spitting out his drink. Exactly as I said. Ooh great, as if our lives in the village weren't bad enough, Menma slammed his head onto the counter. Hey, don't beat yourself up. You're not responsible for her actions. I know, but my grandmother's drinking habits are worse than her gambling habits. Like a few years ago she gambled 120,000 ryo on a game of poker. A game she sucks ass at. She even tripled the amount on the 3rd game. She loses and what does she do? She flees, and my parents had to pay off her debt. We were lucky she stopped gambling, or the entire Namikaze clan accounts would have bled dry. Menma sighed in irritation. Geez, I can see now why she's called the legendary sucker. Said Naruto as he was served his drink. Uncle Madara told me she was called that for a different reason. But he never told me and said I was too young to understand. Before Menma could even answer that, AM served them their ramen. The smell was so toxicating, the aroma was enough to drag you in. Taking their chopsticks they thanked Tucci and his daughter before digging in. Sunlight shined through the window on the upper level of the compound. Its warm rays shone lightly upon the faces of Naruto and Menma. Menma spent the night at the Senju compound and was welcomed with open arms from Hashirama and his family. Naruto was sleeping soundly on his side with Menma huddling close to his little brother. Mito came in and smiled at the sleeping boys. Walking over she gently shook them awake. Naruto, Menma, wake up, you're going to be late for breakfast. Mito said softly. The boys mumbled a bit as they weren't ready to get up yet. Mito sighed and decided to use her usual method when Hashirama wouldn't wake up. Gathering her chakra and pushing it to her hands, she formed electric currents in her hands. Chuckling with a happy smile, she leaned forward to their sweet little faces. "Get your lazy butts out of bed." Naruto and Menma immediately sprang up, clutching each other. Barely awake, they turned to look at Mito. Menma let out a yawn and spoke to the Senju matriarch. "Wow, I didn't know Naruto's old clock had a banshee alarm." Mito gasped in shock, her face twitched, and large tick marks appeared on her forehead. "Who's an old banshee?" "Ah. Mito-sama." Menma screamed, coming to his senses. Back downstairs, Madara was cooking breakfast for the whole family. He had a knack for cooking and it was one of his hobbies. He wore a black tank top which showed off his ripped muscles and six-pack. He also wore a pair of black Hakama Anbu pants with a skull belt buckle on it. He also wore a white apron that said the following: "Disrespect my cooking, I'll burn you alive." Tobirama walked in, rubbing the back of his head and yawning at the same time. "Morning, sunshine." Tobirama said jokingly to Madara as he sat down at the table. "Morning, Toby, sleep well?" Madara asked back, flipping the pancakes. "Better than my 100-year dirt nap." Tobirama answered by reading the newspaper. "Where's Hashirama?" "He's preparing for the peace treaty with Kumagakure. Hiruzen and Kurama are with him to oversee the treaty." Madara set the table and began placing the pancakes on the plates. The sweet aroma was so heavenly it even made Tobirama's mouth water. The second didn't want to admit it, but he liked his cooking better than Mito's. Speaking of Mito, she should have woken up the boys by now. Soon they heard loud crashing from upstairs and screaming from Mito. The boys came rushing downstairs fully dressed as they say at the table. Naruto was perfectly fine, but Menma looked like he was in a street fight. What happened? Tobirama was concerned about Menma for a bit. "I tickle a sleeping dragon." Menma groaned in pain. "He called mom an old banshee." Naruto ratted him out. "Hey, I was still tired and I couldn't see straight, okay?" Menma retorted angrily. Menma's eye was swollen along with his left cheek and he had a black eye. Madara immediately took notice of this and knew who the sleeping dragon was. Speaking of the dragon, they noticed her coming down the stairs humming to herself. Mito was smiling warmly and brightly, except it was a smile the family was familiar with. "What a fine, fresh morning." The matriarch chuckled, taking her seat at the head of the table. "It's a special day for Konoha." "Special day my ass. I wouldn't trust Kumagakure as far as I could throw them. You know their main goal is to obtain as many bloodlines as they can to fuel the ranks of their shinobi." Madara spoke his piece with malice against the cloud. "I believe this treaty is no more than a trap. Once we have our guard down, they will steal someone from one of the clans from under our noses. Surely Hashirama placed that ambassador under watchful eyes. From what I heard, they tried this the last time and almost kidnapped Hinata Hyuga." "Yes, he did, he appointed Minato for that." Tobirama sighed, turning the page. "Hedgehog head, scratch that, you would be insulted by actual hedgehogs." "Why him of all people?" "Minato no longer has Hiraishin, so he won't be able to teleport to the guy's location in an instant." Madara pinched his nose before sitting down to eat. "If anyone, he should have chosen Tobirama. You originally created the Hiraishin." "Oh, don't worry, I'm the backup." "Say what?" Madara was confused now. Hashirama knew Minato lost his ability to use the Hiraishin. "So I'm the backup in case Minato screws up." "Which I know he will." Lord Second smirked. "So children, how are things at the academy?" Mito asked the boys. Naruto and Menma looked at each other before Naruto answered his mother. He revealed to her that the academy qualifications weren't as they once were. Basically, the old civilian council reduced the effort it took for shinobi to be prepared for the real world. The curriculum was falling behind with basic maths and writing, which you can actually learn at home. The most they learned during the first year or so was shinobi history and other basic classes. Mito couldn't help but agree that the curriculum wasn't living up to its glory days, and she had noticed that civilian-born shinobi were passing a lot easier than clan-born shinobi. Tobirama, overhearing the conversation, added his own piece of advice. He told the boys that learning about the past helps to improve the future. It is easier to learn from the past if they wish to improve and bring fresh ideas and other things to the future. Many people pride on their past while others suffer from it. The only difference is whether the person wishes to learn from it or run from it. He understands that some classes may be boring than the others. But they could also benefit from it. Hearing this, the boys seemed to agree with Lord Second, and soon the family dug into Madara's sweet, delicious pancakes. After the heartwarming breakfast, the two boys bid them farewell and headed out to the park. Madara placed the dishes into the sink and began to wash them when he felt a pair of strong arms wrapped around his waist. "Toby?" Madara painted. "Now that the brats are gone, how about we move on to the second course? How's breakfast in bed sound?" Tobirama purred, nibbling Madara's earlobe with a gentle nibble. Madara shivered at the touch and dropped the dish she was holding back into the sink. Why did Tobirama have to be handsome and alluring? They dated in secret after the creation of Konoha and eventually fell in love and were going to be married. Until Madara became consumed by power and waged war against Hashirama. But now that he was back they would now be free to continue their relationship. Tobi-chan. Madara struggled to find the right words, yet he couldn't get them to come out. I still need to punish you for leaving me for your greed for power. Tobirama grinned a devilish smile. Tobirama hoisted Madara over his shoulder, much to the shock of the Uchiha. Madara struggled a bit demanding he put him down. But Lord Second being the stubborn and dominant guy he just carried him upstairs to the bedroom for some delicious breakfast in bed. I hate you. Madara mumbled with a deep blush. I love you too. Tobirama laughed. Utsutsuki clan compound. Kagaya was washing dishes humming to herself after having a delicious breakfast. She had to thank Mito for the recipes. After putting them away she turned around to see her son, Niji on the back porch. She was the same height as Naruto and wore a traditional white robe with the clan symbol on the back. Niji underwent a genetic change, he still resembled his father a bit but he had Kagaya's white hair and 2 horns on his head. He was petting his little dog that he named Hachiko. The little dog yipped happily as he settled in Niji's lap. Niji was gazing up at the sky, for some reason he loved looking at the sky. Kagaya walked outside as she noticed her son was sky watching. It reminded her of how she always gazed at the sky every night when she came to Earth for the first time. Taking a seat next to him she placed her hand on his hand, making him look at her with a small gasp. Niji turned to look at his mother's warm smile. He looked at her as he saw her face change to his birth mother Himiko's face for a slight second. Crying small tears he leaned close into her arms. Mommy, Niji said softly with a smile. Kagaya brushed her hand through his hair gently. She understood that Niji lived without a mother for the first years of his life. But she promised to go out of her way to be the mother he needed. Ever since the side branch broke free from the Hyuga clan and became Utsutsuki, life had become better for them. She had their genetics altered so they could look like members of her clan. Of course she was met with many members of the Hyuga clan and each meeting never went well for them. Kagaya always managed to be one step ahead and some Hyuga even ended up killed. Niji, said Kagaya. Huh? Niji said, looking up at her. What is it? What do you want most in life? What do you fight for? Niji was confused by this question. But at the same time he remembered that his mother hadn't known love from her past. She never understood what humanity strived for. It never interested her in the slightest, so why was she asking him this? Well, I fight for my village and everyone in it. We live as protectors of the leaf. Some may say shinobi are slaves that serve their cages. But to me it's different. I fight for a brighter future to bring peace. But peace is never everlasting, it's temporary with the dark fact that there will always be war. Peace is only an illusion. Niji explained in his usual tone. I used to believe that fate was sealed in the very thread of life itself. But never would I have thought that fate could be altered. I was once a slave to the main branch of the Hyuga, but now. Niji cried tears of happiness for the first time in such a long time. I'm finally free of my cage, free to fly wherever my life takes me. Kagaya could only smile at how far her little boy had come. Niji had certainly matured in the short time he had been with her. One of the Utsutsuki members approached them. It was a middle-aged woman who was once Niji's nanny after his mother died in childbirth. Lady Kagaya, forgive me for intruding. But Lord Hiashi is here to see you. Kagaya's eyes narrowed with a sharpening glare from the mere mention of that man's name. After what happened that day when she liberated the side branch and used the caged bird seal on him. She thought the man would have the brains to realize she was not someone to be challenged. She calmly stood up and told Niji that the meeting won't last long. She told him to go see his friends for a while, but Niji shook his head because he wanted to help his mother. He explained that if he is to become head of the Utsutsuki clan one day, then he will need to learn all he can. She was going to refuse till she noticed the determined look in his eye. She sighed but nodded her head. Very well, Niji, you may come. But remember these few rules, you don't speak unless spoken to. Second, regardless of your past with this man, you must show him respect unless he insults the clan in any shape or form. Third, you must contain your negative emotions during the meeting and only release them at the right time. One screw-up could ruin everything. Kagaya explained harshly, making Niji nod. Kagaya then turned to the old woman and told her to let Hiashi in. The woman nodded as she headed to the front door to allow the man in. Hiashi walked into the compound as he and Kagaya stared down at one another. He took notice of Niji and how different he looked. He could see his former nephew resembled the woman who broke apart his clan. Lady Kagaya. Hiashi said, trying to hold back his distaste for her. Lord Hiashi. Kagaya replied back with equal distaste. What brings you here to my compound on such a fine morning? I have come here for the return of the clan members you stole from me. Hiashi demanded. The Hyuga elders have pushed him to retrieve the side branch since the side branch made up most of the clan itself. Losing them had greatly reduced the clan in numbers. It left them at a very vulnerable state, they weren't weak or defenseless, but it put their bloodline in severe peril. Hiashi was ordered to ensure the side branch was returned for their bloodline was vital. No, you are speaking to Hiashi. Kagaya threatened as she unleashed her chakra infused with massive killer intent. Niji felt the air thicken from the amount of power his mother was releasing. He could barely even move, it was like being frozen solid. It was like being in a nightmare you couldn't wake up from. This Kai, it's so powerful. I can't move my body. Is this power my mother's true power? Her chakra feels so dark, so benevolent, so divine. Niji shuddered as he gazed upon his mother. What is this strange chakra? Hiashi gasped, shielding his face with his arms. Who are you? I'm the embodiment of power itself. I'm the very core of which all chakra originates. I am known throughout history by many names. Some call me a goddess, a healer, a demon, a killer. But I am infamously known as the rabbit goddess, the mother of all chakra. Kagaya shouted. Hiashi's eyes widened. This woman. This very creature that attacked him and severed the clan was the embodiment of chakra itself. The infamous rabbit goddess herself. No, that couldn't be true, the rabbit goddess was just a fairy tale. Surely this woman must be an impostor and a Hyuga rebel. You honestly expect me to believe that? Hiashi scoffed with a laugh. The rabbit goddess is a myth, a mere story told by generations of shinobi. What I see is a Hyuga woman with an over-egotistical ego who tried to defy the power of the main branch. Niji grit his teeth, seething with anger at his former uncle's disrespect to his mother. What he wouldn't give to rip that smirk off his smug face. But he had to remember his mother's rule. He couldn't show any negative emotions until the right time called for it. You dare call the fourth greatest woman of divinity a liar. You dare mock her power and ability. You dare mock the woman who lived before chakra even existed, the woman who ended all wars before the rise of shinobi, the woman who has the rank of divinity that only the three divine sisters have. You dare mock her like she was some kind of peasant under your shoe. Give me one good reason why I shouldn't kill you where you stand. Niji stepped forward before Kagaya held her arm in front of him to stop him from approaching any further. Niji grunted in frustration but backed down as commanded. Whether you believe me or not, Hiashi, is up to you. But what is true is that I am on a level far greater than anything you could possibly achieve. Kagaya smirked darkly. I'm a person of divinity, and I won't hesitate to end your life if you continue to demand of me anything. Your clan's numbers have been greatly reduced, making you now the smallest clan in the village. You dare mock the Hyuga. Hiashi screamed, charging at Kagaya with full speed. Kagaya stood her ground to fight until Hiashi fell to the ground, clutching his forehead. The cage bird seal was still branded on his forehead. The elders who knew the seal and its design tried to remove it but couldn't. It was as if the seal itself was burned into his skin. Kagaya turned to see Niji standing there with his hand forming the symbol. Niji spoke out against Hiashi once again. You told me to only lash out when the time comes. Well, that time was now. It was bad enough he called you a liar. But it crossed the line when he mocked you as some low-class peasant, like some commoner. I have tolerated his insults, but that one crossed the line. Niji screamed, adding more chakra to the seal, making Hiashi scream louder. The guy immediately grabbed Niji's hand, breaking the seal. He looked at her, asking her why she stopped him. She shook her head at him, basically telling him to let it go. Letting out a small growl of anger and frustration, he stopped the flow of chakra to the seal on Hiashi, giving him relief. Hiashi looked up at the two. Kagaya stepped forward. Let this be a lesson to you. I have shown you mercy by having my son spare your life. Kagaya warned him. But try to demand anything from me again, and I won't stop him from killing you next time. You won't get away with this, you hear me? Hiashi screamed. I'm the head of the Hyuga clan. Arg. Kagaya pressed her foot upon his neck, adding pressure to crush it. Hiashi struggled to pry it off but was having trouble trying to budge it. Don't push me, I'm in a really foul mood. She said coldly before removing her foot. You've become the kind of man you despise. The once great Kai blocker Hiashi of the Leaf is now a figurehead for the Hyuga elders. Once a proud clan head, now reduced to an elder's lapdog. Hiashi picked himself up, trying to put on a brave face. But he was shaking so bad that urine traveled down his pant legs. Kagaya groaned, her new carpet was ruined. She picked up Hiashi by his collar and kicked him out the door, making him fall flat on his face. That's for ruining my brand new carpet, you filthy mutt. It cost me a pretty penny to buy that. The villagers who saw the whole thing felt sorry for Hiashi for being at the end of her wrath. Either from demanding her of something or insulting her. Hiashi grunted as he got up and dusted himself off. Seeing the villagers staring at him, he coughed before walking off as if nothing happened. Niji smiled, watching him walk away in shame. Well, that was fun. I'm going to meet my friends and I'll be home by dinner. Niji rushed off to meet up with his friends. Kagaya smiled before heading back into the house to continue with sewing a sweater she was making for her son. She needed time to relax after her morning was ruined by Hiashi. Niji was hurrying down the street as the park was close by. On his way there, he heard the villagers talking about the Kumo peace treaty. He couldn't understand how they could trust Kumo after what happened to his father. The Raikage denied any involvement with the kidnapping, and the village actually believed it and sacrificed his father. The only problem was that his father willingly gave his life not just for his brother but for the village. On his way there he noticed Naruto and Menma outside of the park gates. They met with Sasuke, who also arrived along with Shikamaru and other kids. Naruto noticed him and called him over, to which he happily responded and rushed over to greet them. Meanwhile, the villagers were gathered in the main district as the Kumo shinobi arrived with the new Kumo ambassador. The man was 6 feet 2, dark-skinned and well-built muscled body. He wore a dark green vest and dark blue pants with white tape wrapped around his left leg and both arms. He had long dark hair with a ponytail tied at the end. He also had a long scar over his left eye that ran from the top of his eye down past his nose. His name was Arashi Akumi, the Dark Tempest of the Hidden Cloud and S-rank shinobi who specialize in nightly assassination. He was accompanied by his sister, who was one of the group of shinobi that was in charge of protecting him. She was 5 feet 8 inches with a slim body and DT-size cup. She was dark-skinned but fairly beautiful with long black hair and beautiful blue eyes. Her name was Ketsu Akumi, the Bloody Tempest of the Hidden Cloud. She was an A-rank kunoichi and a deadly one at that. She was well infamous for killing 1,000 shinobi with a single typhoon caused by her deadly bloodline storm release. While everyone greeted them with warm smiles and cheers of praise. A figure watched from a distance in the shadows. He wasn't fond of having Kumo ninjas here. Oh, not one bit. He only returned today from his month-long mission, tracking down a highly dangerous rogue ninja that was wanted by the Leaf for over 10 years but was never found until now. He let out an angry hiss before vanishing into the shadows. He was going to keep a close eye on them. Arashi and his sister were greeted by Minato and Kushina, the infamous Yellow Flash and Red Hot Habanero. They exchanged greetings. Minato Namikaze, your legend precedes you. You're quite the legend in our village, the only one who could match the 4th Raikage in speed and managed to almost defeat him and Killer Bee in combat, said Ketsu. Ketsu Akumi of the Akumi clan and the infamous Bloody Tempest, an A-rank kunoichi that single-handedly killed 1,000 Konoha shinobi in the Third Great War using storm release. It's been a long time since we met on the battlefield. Minato replied before looking at her brother. And who can forget the infamous Dark Tempest, Arashi Akumi, Kumo's deadliest assassin. Seems we are quite known in the Leaf as well. Arashi boasted as he gazed down upon Kushina. Ah, Kushina Uzumaki, the Red Hot Habanero and member of the infamous Uzumaki clan. It's been far too long since we last met. Indeed, your father tried to capture me along with his team when I was a little girl. Kushina snarled. Then he was killed after he tried kidnapping the Hyuga heiress. Now you dare come here to settle another peace treaty when you failed to secure one last time. That was when the 3rd Raikage was in power. The 4th Raikage, wishes to form a non-conflict peace treaty with the Leaf. He is not interested in bloodlines as he's perfectly fine with the ninja we have. We don't need bloodline-fueled ninja to show off our strength. Ketsu rebuked her. I've lusted after bloodlines in the past. That will never change. Kushina screamed. Pardon my wife, as she still is sore about her past experience with Kumo shinobi. Well, next time keep your wife on a very short leash. Ketsu scolded. If our villages want this peace treaty to happen, then we must be civil to one another. Not be at each other's throats like pack animals. Minato nodded before leading them to the Hokage's tower. Once there they were shocked and astounded at the man who sat upon the chair. They had heard rumors of the return of the first Hokage. But I didn't believe it was true, but here he was sitting before them. But the other thing that shocked them was that the Nine-Tails fox sat on his left side. They thought the Nine-Tails was sealed away after it rampaged through Konoha. So you must be the ambassador that has come to sign a non-conflict peace treaty with my village. Hashirama asked them with warm greetings. Yes, Lord. First, we are shocked to see you here of all people. Rumors had spread far and wide of your return to the mortal world. It looks like the rumors were true. But yes, Lord, I wishes to secure an alliance with the Leaf. He had hoped this will mend the rift that his father, the late Sandaime, created after the failed Hyuga kidnapping. Yes, although Ai's father denied any involvement. We still had to give in to their demand for the killer's life as it violated the first treaty. We had to sacrifice Asashi Hyuga, Niji's father. Luckily he had the Cage-Beard seal which not only saved the village but preserved the Byakugan. As much as I hate and despise that kind of slavery, it did prevent a war, said Hiruzen. However, Kumo sent Yujito Nai one of their Jinchuriki as a peace offering and a piece of goodwill. Speaking of Yujito, how is she? She is the Raikage's niece and he wants to know her status and condition. Arashi asked about the girl. Yujito is fine, she is staying with one of our most trusted occupants. Hiruzen replied, wanting to keep her location with Danzo a secret due to Kumo's attitude towards the man. And who is that? Ketsu narrowed her eyes. The kitten is living with me at the Senju compound. Mrs. PMS is the holder of my elder sister Matatabi. So who better to raise her than me? Hey, her name is Yujito Nai, you baka fox. How dare you call her such a name? Ketsu ranted. Ha. I call her that because her tantrums are exactly like Matatabi when she's on her period. Kurama smirked, being a smartass. I feel sorry that Naruto has to marry her. But hey, his tastes are his business. I mean, look at Hashirama, he's the god of all shinobi, yet he's whipped and leashed by his wife. Hashirama sulked in his chair from Kyuubi's statement. Sure, he was the greatest shinobi in the world and feared by all. Yet he wasn't able to stand up to his loving and scary lotus flower, Mito. Hiruzen let out a loud exasperated sigh. Can we continue with the treaty? Hiruzen groaned. I want to get home and relax with my favorite book. Deciding to get this over with, Arashi and Ketsu were led to the council chamber. The large marble hall was filled with the clan heads, the civilian council led by Mabuki Haruno, and the representative of the fire daimyo, who was a young woman around the age of 20. She was the fire daimyo's eldest daughter, Aiko Takahashi, and his pride and joy. The Kumo ambassador and his sister were seated at a white marble long table with the clan heads on the left side and the civilian council on the right. The Hokage sat at the head of the table with Hiruzen and the fire daimyo's daughter standing behind him and Kyuubi standing next to him. Now that we are all assembled, we can discuss the terms of the treaty. Hashirama said in his stoic yet commanding voice. The treaty that was given to Hashirama stated that the two villages won't engage in any hostility from one another. Business and trade routes will be open to one another's merchant guilds to greatly improve business relations. All Kumo asked for was knowledge on the almost extinct art of sealing. As there were very few Fuinjutsu users in the land of lightning. The contract also came with a marriage agreement that the son of the sun would marry the niece of the current Raikage. Basically, they were asking for the marriage between Naruto Senju and Yujito Nai. Having read the treaty, Hashirama asked the council of his peers if they agreed with the terms. Everyone nodded their heads. Hashirama asked Kurama for his counsel, since he knew humans better than anyone. Kurama and all your great council, what do you say? The terms of the treaty are minor and basic at best. However, regarding their term involving the sealing arts. If we handed over any high-ranking or powerful seals to them. Then even without their or our own knowledge, someone from Lightning Country would use it to their advantage and violate the treaty to try and destroy us, given our past bad blood. After all, our sealing knowledge comes from the Uzumaki clan, who were the masters in the art. Therefore, my final counsel is, yes, we share our sealing knowledge, but any sealing formulas and knowledge known to the Uzumaki clan are to be kept secret. As for the marriage proposal, Yujito has already shown interest in Naruto and openly wishes to marry him. Kurama said, giving his wise counsel. However, to ensure the treaty stays effective for years to come, it needs an ace in the hole. Therefore, as a message to Kumo, any attack on the village is an attack against me. I may have been sealed 3 times already, but I had pledged to defend this village. Every shinobi knows that while I may be sealed, I'm still the most powerful force in existence. The Kumo ambassador and his sister nodded their heads, fearing the fox's retribution should anything happen against the village. Sure, they have the 8 tails, but Konoha has the god of shinobi, the Kyuubi, and other powerful forces. Satisfied with the agreement, the treaty was signed by both parties. The bad blood between Konohagakure and Kumagakure can finally be placed to rest. The ambassador was welcome to stay for the day and depart the next day. They took the offer with great sincerity. The rest of the day passed quickly and the village was in joyous celebration. Bars and restaurants were opened and a festival was held to honor the peace between the two villages. Naruto was enjoying the festival with his brother and friends. Playing games at booths, eating delicious snacks and other things. It was the most joyous day of his life. He had never been happier. He and Menma sat at the edge of a large lake looking at the sunset. Menma took in its beautiful sight as he felt relief, something he hadn't felt in a while. He turned to look at Naruto, who had somehow fallen asleep. Placing an arm around him, he held him close. Watching from the trees, Minato and Kushina were pleased to see how close the boys had become. Now that the boys have become close, it will be easier for Naruto to help his brother achieve his destiny. Hearing the rustling, Menma turned to see his parents. Mom? Dad? What are you doing in the tree? Are you spying on us? Menma asked, disturbed. Of course not, we came to look for you. Minato said as they jumped down. We noticed how close you two have gotten and we are so happy. Something tells me you're more than just happy. Menma answered. We knew Naruto would understand. Now he will finally be able to help you achieve your goal in bringing peace to the shinobi world. Just like the wise old toad said. Menma stiffened hearing about the prophecy again. Menma began to slowly realize that his parents seemed to care more about the prophecy than their kids. He began to realize that he was only special and receiving extra love and attention because of it. If Naruto was the child of prophecy, would they have abandoned him like they did Naruto? Mom, Dad, if Naruto was the child of prophecy, would you have left me here in the village? Menma asked a little coldly. What? What are you talking about, son? You're the child of prophecy. Kushina laughed, thinking he was joking. What if I wasn't? Would you have left me behind? Menma asked again impatiently. Of course not. Minato said hurtfully. Then what made Naruto any different? His parents tried to speak their answer. But the words wouldn't seem to come out. It was if their guilt was trying to prevent them from saying something stupid or something that would make everything worse. We had to keep the soul container away from the chakra container. The Kyuubi would be able to remove its chakra from you and break out of the seal once more. We aren't proud of what he did, but it was the best solution at the time. His mother tried to explain. All this time I believed I was special, some kind of hero. He said before looking at Naruto. But now I see what that could have cost me if the roles were reversed. I'll fulfill the prophecy as foretold. But I'll do it on my own terms. As the Uzumaki code states, family comes before all. Menma, the future of the shinobi is going to be at serious risk soon. A great evil will befall the world and the child of prophecy will decide the fate of the outcome. Plus with that masked man still out there who knows what he will do. Kushina explained. When has the shinobi world not been at risk? Our lives are at risk every day. You speak of this great evil but don't know what it truly is. I also know prophecies change all the time. Menma, what's gotten into you? Minato asked. I grew a brain. Menma retorted before standing up with Naruto on his back. I'm taking Naruto home, I'll be home afterwards. Minato and Kushina tried to stop him but Menma had already left. Deep in the shadows a man was watching before creeping back into the darkness. Night fell quickly as Menma carried his brother home. He jumped up a tree and through the open bedroom window. Once inside he placed Naruto on the bed and tucked him in. Afterwards he left and headed home. Unbeknownst to him a figure crept into the room and approached the sleeping Redeed. Pulling out his large sack he stuffed Naruto in it and ran out into the night. A snake was nearby as it slithered its way into the surrounding woods. Approaching its master that was waiting for it, it slithered up his arm and hissed into his ear. I knew it. The man gritted his teeth and dismissed his summon. The figure ran quickly through the woods and into the dark areas of the village to avoid being seen. He was eager to bring the Senju heir to Kumo. They would have access to the legendary Mokuton. He knew being chosen to go with the ambassador would give him perfect access to snatch a child from one of the clans. Tetsu and Arashi had no idea of his motives and when he brings the brat to the village, he might even replace Aya's Reikage and finally have the power to demolish Konoha. This so-called peace treaty wasn't worth the effort, why should they be making peace with a leaf when they still had the manpower to wipe them out? You're going to be the key to Konoha's destruction, boy. With the Senju and Uzumaki bloodline, we will breed an army that will bring the villages to bow at our my feet. He laughed maniacally. Suddenly he heard movement in the trees. Taking out a kunai he prepared for any attack. He looked around for any sign of movement but found none. Feeling a bit paranoid he continued on. After moving a few more feet he heard it again. This time his nerves got the better of him. Who's there? Show yourself. He screamed. I know you're there. Come out and face me, cowardly. Goku, ha 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 ha. The voice laughed. Now why in the world would I want to do that? When I can ravish in the joy of making you sweat. Come on out, I'm not scared of you. Show yourself. He demanded louder this time. The figure soon jumped down in front of him. The Cloud Ninja readied his weapon as he gazed upon the shape from the shadows. The moon's bright rays illuminated the woods, revealing the figure who stood in his way. His skin was very pale and white like a snake's skin, his eyes were golden with slitted pupils and purple markings around them. His wide grin showed off his fang-like teeth. He also had pronounced cheekbones and straight waist-length black hair, with some locks covering and framing his face. He wore the standard Jounin uniform, flak jacket and all. He also carried a long sword with a golden snake handle strapped to his back. Oh, Orochimaru of the Sannin. The man gasped, dropping the sack. Did you really think I wouldn't find out what you were up to? Orochimaru said coldly. I don't know what you're talking about, I didn't do anything wrong. He screamed while still sweating. You're lying, even your body language and tone of voice gives it away. You tried to kidnap my godson and use him as a breeding tool. Hoping this will raise you to the ranks of ultimate power within Kumo. It was bad enough that Minato was planning it. But when another village wants the same thing. I don't show any mercy. Snakes are very protective of their hatchlings. Orochimaru smirked, drawing his sword till he saw his reflection within the blade. Because believe me when I say you're not going to leave this village alive. You think I'm scared? You can't do anything to me as it will violate the treaty and Konoha isn't prepared to fight another war. The man boasted. I hold the cards now, Orochimaru. Konoha wouldn't risk going to war for a single brat. But I would. Orochimaru charged at such speed he appeared behind the man. The ninja turned his head as Orochimaru slashed his arm off. The man screamed as blood gushed out of his severed arm. He laughed as he licked the blood from the blade. Don't bother screaming, no one can hear you. I set up a soundproof before confronting you. But please scream as loud as you want, it only makes me want to kill you more. Orochimaru laughed approaching the ninja. Okami please no, please I beg of you. No. please no, no. Orochimaru grabbed his other arm and pulled out his kunai and laughed maniacally. And this little piggy went to market. He cut off the first finger causing him to scream. Ah. This little piggy went home screaming. He yelled, cutting off the second finger. Ah no, someone help me. Ahaha, and this big piggy lost his head. He sliced his hand off. Please have mercy. The man cried out. Please have mercy. Sorry, but I wasted that on Minato before he left the village years ago. The sounds of tearing flesh and screaming filled the barrier as the birds flew off into the sky. Orochimaru, now stained with blood, approached the sack and picked up Naruto. He felt the barrier fall as ninja rushed to the spot. Hashirama and the Kumo ambassadors arrived to see a cloud shinobi flayed and in pieces and Orochimaru standing by him covered in blood. What happened here? Hashirama yelled. You should ask the ambassadors. One of their shinobi snuck into the Senju compound and kidnapped Naruto. The man hoped that by kidnapping Naruto the village wouldn't risk another war over him. I only managed to come home today, and one of my summons informed me of the man's intention to kidnap the boy. Orochimaru explained. Tetsu approached Orochimaru and instead of attacking him, she thanked him, which confused him. Why was she thanking him for killing one of their shinobi? Ketsu explained that she thought the village purged the remainder of Kumo's Black Lightning Division. An Anbu division created by the second Raikage whose mission was to kidnap and bring fresh bloodlines to boost the physical power of the village. After the third death I had the Anbu division disbanded and had the old members executed. They had no idea that members of the division were still active. Orochimaru was skeptical, but he had a run-in with those Anbu before. Plus he didn't sense deception in her words. Lord Hokage, Kumo had no idea they were still running in secret. The Raikage had no knowledge of this. Arashi explained, hoping to avoid another war. That's what the last Raikage said when he tried to kidnap Hinata. I told you Kumo couldn't be trusted. Kushina ranted loudly like a banshee. Geez, and I thought my voice was loud. Mibuyuki winced, covering her ears. They speak the truth, Hashirama, said Orochimaru. I sense no deception in their actions or their words. Hashirama nodded. Very well. Arashi cleaned up your ninja's corpse and Orochimaru took Naruto home. Ketsu sent word to Ai of what had transpired. Tetsu nodded and left to send word to Ai of the incident. Arashi took care of the body by burning but keeping the severed head. Orochimaru took the sleeping Naruto home. The snake was surprised that Naruto slept through all that. Arriving at the compound, Mito was told of the incident and boy was she mad. So she actually trashed the kitchen in her rage. After calming down she sat down to have a glass of sake. Orochimaru quickly placed Naruto to bed and closed his door. Small lemon ahead. If you don't like, please skip it. On his way down he heard laughing coming from Tobirama's room and went to investigate. Opening the door his eyes widened before he screamed. Madara and Tobirama, both naked in bed, turned to see Orochimaru gazing at them. Do you mind? Tobirama shouted as he was still on top of Madara. The man's arms are still around his waist. Don't you know how to knock? Madara retorted. Don't you know how to lock your doors? And since when are you two so lovey-dovey? You hate each other. Orochimaru shouted as he covered his eyes and shut the door before running down the hall. Geez, what's his problem? Tobirama scoffed. Who cares now where we were? Madara smirked and kissed Tobirama. Why do the goddesses torment me with such irresponsible, blatant, and useless shinobi? Hashirama asked irritably, tearing into Minato and Kushina for their failure to protect his seedling. Please. Minato said, trying to reason with him. Be silent. Hashirama commanded the man to flinch. I gave you both a simple assignment to keep track of the Kumo ambassador, and your incompetence had nearly cost me the life of my only son. Has my teachings from the past taught you nothing? You mustn't be hard on yourself, Lord Hashirama, you were an excellent teacher. Hiruzen praised. It's not your fault they were incompetent, Danzo added. Hashirama-sama, please, there is no excuse for what we did. Kushina answered with a firm tone in her voice. We know we were responsible for Naruto. HMPH responsible. Hashirama scoffed. Do you know the meaning of that word, Kushina? Yes, I understand. Kushina assured him. Then do you understand the destiny that my sapling has set for him by the heavens above? That my son will lead the world into a paradise that not even I myself couldn't achieve. The Hokage gazed upon the picture of Naruto on his desk. His warm smile shows off the radiance of innocence which saddens him as that would soon fade once blood is spilt by his hand. One failure to save Naruto doesn't show weakness in our capabilities. Minato retorted, getting fed up. You should know that. But one weak link can break the roots of a mighty generation. Hashirama roared, turning to face Minato. Mito placed her hand on Hashirama's shoulder and gazed down at Minato's lowered head. Hashirama sighed before raising his hand to dismiss them. You have my leave to go, you're both demoted for your failure. Hashirama groaned, giving his final word on the subject. Okage-sama Kushina tried to get a say in before Mito held up her hand to silence her. Kushina turned around and headed out the door muttering to herself all kinds of complaints. Minato soon left after her, not wanting to cause any more trouble than they already have. Love. Mito consoled him. I shouldn't have sent those two imbeciles when I should have sent Orochimaru, Naruto's godfather, to do the job instead. Hashirama said, lost in his own shame for failing to put better protection for the boy. You're right, you shouldn't. Mito scolded him before softening. But that doesn't make you any lesser of a leader. Her husband turned around to meet her gaze. Demoting them two isn't enough. What would you have me do? He asked before Mito whispered something in his ear. Scene change. Walking down the hall, Minato noticed his wife leaning against the wall. She looked troubled from the look of it. He guessed she was taking this harder than he was. He wrapped his arms around her, pulling her into a hug. Kushina laid her head against his chest. Minato-kun, this can't go on. Kushina said softly. What are you talking about, Kushi-chan? Minato asked, confused at this. Naruto, we can't keep doing this, Minato. I think it's time we let him go. Minato's eyes widened at his wife's declaration. She was always spouting about getting Naruto back. To hold her baby again and have him call her mom. What changed? What could have forced her to come to this conclusion? Kushina. What are you saying? You've been always talking and planning on how to get Naruto back. Look at us, Minato, Kushina shouted. Look at what's happened to us since we left him here. Nothing but punishment. Lately I noticed I can't conjure up the chakra chains, then you lose the Hiraishin and most of your chakra, and now we've been demoted too. Kushina sobbed into his shirt, staining it with tears. No more Minato, we can't endanger our lives because of him. Kushina. Minato consoled her, rubbing her back. You're talking nonsense. Open your eyes, Minato, we lost mostly everything. If surrendering Naruto will make this go away, so be it. Kushina screamed till she panted, running out of breath. Please, love, for the sake of our family and Menma's sake, let Naruto go. He's happy with Hashirama and Mito, let's give him that at least. We have to think of Menma and prepare him for his destiny. But he's my son. Minato shouted. He's my son too, but look what's happened. We can change the past and we must look to the future. Naruto is the past and our Menma is the future for mankind. I love him as much as you do and it pains me to do this. But we have to make sacrifices, and if I must lose to Naruto a second time, then that's what I shall do to ensure the safety and future of the human race. Kushina's voice broke in sadness with each word she spoke. Minato looked out one of the windows and gazed at the cloudy sky. Could he really do it? Surrender his ties to his former son. Minato loved his son even after leaving him in Konoha. But did he love him enough to let him go? Konoha Academy. Naruto entered the classroom, which was filled to the brim with students. Gazing around, he noticed that over 50% of the student body in the academy were civilian-born and around 42% were clan-born shinobi. He knew that the academic materials used during the reign of the Fourth lacked a bit since the old civilian council handled the curriculum pretty badly. They also removed certain classes that made it easier for civilian shinobi to get into the shinobi ranks. Male seduction, which was a key element to Kunoichi, was a critical part when it comes to her intel retrieval. Which was now replaced with a flower arrangement class. Then there was Kenjutsu training, which taught many people mastery and skill with a blade. Another class is gone due to lack of art. Training, which was once another key class, was now restricted to Anbu and other special ops. Even medical training was lacking due to lack of funding. All the key classes meant to prepare a shinobi for the real world were removed by greedy human beings. Luckily his father managed to reinstate the classes. His mom, Mito, was in charge on male seduction, Yugao was in charge of Kenjutsu, Tsunade was placed in charge of training medics, Orochimaru was in charge of teaching the arts of poisons, and Madara was in charge of assassination training. Finally Kurama was in charge of teaching torture and interrogation tactics. Naruto-san, Menma yelled, waving his hand in the air. Over here. Naruto smiled and walked over to his brother and greeted him with a playful headlock. Menma laughed as he struggled to get out of it. So what's my charming, sassy, and overconfident brother up to? Naruto asked. Hey, I'm not overconfident, who do you think I am? Uncle Jiraiya. Well, Naruto grinned. Don't answer that. Menma silenced him. What? I wasn't going to say anything, Naruto said innocently. Menma knew that look and tone of voice. He's seen that in his time at the academy and the fire capital. He then gave Naruto a bonk on the head with his fist. Now Menma, what was that for? Naruto whined, rubbing his head. Oh, come off, Naruto, your innocent act doesn't fool me. Menma accused. You were going to compare Jiraiya's overinflated ego with mine. It's written all over your face. Was not, Naruto argued. Was too, Menma argued back. Lightning collided between their eyes before they were interrupted by a small cough. They turned to see Yujito dressed in a black tank top and blue shorts. Her pale blonde hair tied into a beautiful bun. Well, looks like I just walked into the baby hour. I swear your behavior looks like something out of a comedy. Except I'm not laughing. Yujito grinned. Though I expect my future husband to contain himself and not fall into such childish squabbles. It makes you look like a joke. And your loud mouth, sexy, and short-tempered fuse, that makes you the punchline kitten. Naruto smirked before he was tackled to the ground by Yujito. Don't call me kitten. Yujito hissed. Okay, I won't. Naruto smirked before flipping her over, pinning her down. Kitten, if they kiss I'm going to puke, Shikamaru said from the second row seats. What? Naruto asked before realizing how close his lips were to Yujito's. Wait. No, he sputtered before getting off Yujito. Heading to their seats, Iruka came in and took roll calls. The early part of the academy was just basic academy stuff like calligraphy, history of the shinobi, and certain maths and other classes. Which was perfect for the first years of the academy. But Naruto, Menma, and Yujito wanted to participate in the better parts of the academy. When the afternoon came around, Yujito, being a bit older, attended her first male seduction class and she was very good at it. Naruto, along with Sasuke and surprisingly Ino, attended Kurama's class. Torture and interrogation class room A3. Naruto took his seat next to Sasuke and Ino. Other children were there and were looking forward to the class. The door opened to reveal Kurama. He stood in his male human form. A man at 5 feet 9 inches tall, long red hair, and a fit body build. He was both intimidating and handsome at the same time. He gazed upon the student body and greeted them with a wide smile. Hello students, my name is Kurama Utsutsuki and welcome to Torture and Interrogation. Here you will learn the methods and techniques to extract information from both enemy and sometimes traitors within your own village. Kurama grinned widely. But beware, some of the methods will be too gruesome. But then again, some may be too extreme, like what I do. Everyone knows that when you interrogate someone you love peeling off their skin, gouging out his eyes. Naruto spoke out. Besides, if anyone was interrogated by a tailed beast they would sing like birds. What about mental torture? Ino asked him. Kurama looked up at the Yamanaka girl and smiled. Ooh, Yamanaka, they're infamous for their mind transfer bloodline. He chuckled lightly. Ino Yamanaka, heiress of the Yamanaka clan. Infamously known for their mind transfer bloodline. Physical torture may be good, but it doesn't last long. Any creature can die from large amounts of physical torture. But mental torture is, in my opinion, a superior branch. The way you can ensnare the mind, bewitch the senses, among other things. Ino smiled as she welcomed that compliment. Thank you, Kurama-sensei. Kurama produced a blood clone of a random person. He called upon each student to see what they could do to extract information from an enemy. Naruto called out to go first. Naruto headed to the blood clone and conjured up wood as it wrapped around the clone. With a smirk he formed a snake hand sign as the wood sprouted spikes which began to pierce into his head. Chakra infused within the wood embedded itself within the bloodstream leading to the brain. The clone screamed in pain from his nerve system. Oh gods, please, it hurts. Ooh, oh ah, the clone cried out in pain. Naruto placed his hand upon the clone's head and began to absorb the chakra from within the brain that contained memory. He was able to see all the memories that Kurama gave the clone for the test. Of course, he also found something else which made him smirk. Kurama-sensei, I had no idea you had the hots for Tsume and Yuzuka. Naruto announced, shocking the class. Kurama blushed deeply. How did the brat find out? Then he realized he must have added too much memory in the clone. That's none of your business, you little twit. Let me guess, Tobirama is banging Uncle Madara, so now you're moving on to Kiba's mother. Though I wouldn't blame you, Tsume is one of the sexiest women in the village. Naruto teased him. Shut up or I will give you physical training with me, 100 laps around the village, 300 push-ups, and 600 sit-ups. Kurama showed his pearly whites, making good on his threat. Naruto held up his hands in defeat. Alright, I concede, don't get your panties in a twist. Arg. You really are insufferable, you know that. What can I say, it's part of my charm. Naruto boasted. After he finished, Sasuke took his turn and extracted his information from the clone by cutting off a finger one by one, then his toes one by one. Sasuke also began describing Tsunade as an old cat lady hag with saggy breasts, false teeth, and dirty breath smelling like fish. He then explains in detail the clone having sex with that version of Tsunade. The clone screamed as it began envisioning it. Ooh god, gross. The clone shouted. Ooh, oh, I am going to puke. Okay, I'll tell you what you want. Just please no more, I'll tell you what you want. Sasuke was given full marks for his methods. Ino passed with flying colors, as did some civilians. Others didn't have the stomach for torture, but did have the knack for non-violent methods and were actually good with negotiations. Kurama thanked and praised the students for their achievements and dismissed the class. Hey Naruto, lunch? Ino asked shyly. Sure, come on, Naruto smiled as they left to have lunch outside. On the way they met up with Yujito and Menma. He heard that Menma had the potential to be an assassin and was proud of him. According to Madara, Menma had perfect stealth that rivaled Kakashi and he had the capability of ending the target swiftly and cleanly. Yujito, he had no doubt his kitten would pass that class. No one could resist her charms. I heard you passed your class, Yujito. Naruto praised her. I never had any doubt. Your mother was a good teacher, I can see how Hashirama fell for her good looks. Shame that her granddaughter inherited any of that. Hey, I resent that. They turned around to see Tsunade standing there. I'll have you know that I was one of the best seducers of the village. Yet the only ones to fall for your charms were Jiraiya and Hans. Naruto reminded her. Age hasn't been good to you. Your beauty may be fading, but your skills have not. Besides, beauty is only skin deep. It's what is inside, the soul, that is the real beauty. My beauty hasn't faded, you little turd, I'm still at the height of my prime. I treat my body like it's a temple. Yeah, except it's worn out and condemned. Naruto laughed. What's your problem with me, Naruto? Didn't my grandparents ever tell you to treat a beautiful woman with respect? Tsunade shouted in his face. Show me a beautiful woman and I'll treat her like a goddess. Naruto snickered as he loved making her mad. Plus you already know why I have a problem with you. That was the past, Naruto, there's nothing else we could have done. Tsunade groaned. What do you want from me? What do I want? Naruto said, turning around glaring at her. You were my grandmother, for crying out loud. If Kushina and Minato had to leave me here, you could have remained and looked after me. You were a mother yourself, yet you went along with Kushina's idea to abandon me. So answer me this. How could you, who was once a mother herself, agree to the abandonment of one's own child? Naruto turns to leave with Yujito and company following behind. Leaving Tsunade behind to rethink the life choices she made after Naruto was born. Menma asked if his brother was okay, knowing how painful the subject was for him. Naruto assured him that he was fine, his stomach grumbled, showing that he was hungry. Scene change. Kushina was walking through the village streets as people were gazing at her and talking about her. She could hear all of the hurtful things that they were saying about her. Wench, witch, can you believe she tried to claim someone else's child? Demon whore, village deserter, criminal. Four hooded women dressed in black robes, wearing animal skull masks, lead her towards the end of the village, to what looks like a large gate. It was made of mahogany wood and gold. Both doors had the engraving of golden hinds, half woman half deer holding bows. They slowly opened to reveal the temple's magnificent architecture. Kushina was led halfway up the steps before she turned around, only for one of the women to turn her around and push her forward, making her fall forward on the steps. She was then pulled back up and a hood was pulled over her head to hide her face. When she was led inside, she was brought before the altar in the center of the temple. A large golden throne was behind the altar as Kagaya herself was sitting upon it. Her gaze burned deep into Kushina. Strip her naked, Kagaya commanded. Kushina was forced to the ground as the priestesses began to tear off her clothes. The woman sobbed quietly as her clothes were being ripped from her body. She began to feel dirty and helpless against them. She cried more as she was forced to stand up and her head was pulled back. Kushina, you are brought here for your punishment for failure to protect Naruto. Hashirama has already been demoted for our failure. Yes, Hashirama did, but I didn't give mine. Mito said, coming out from the shadows. I overheard your conversation with Minato outside of the office. You wanted to remove Naruto from your life. After all the time you were planning to take him from me. Heathen, one of the priestesses growled, slapping Kushina, earning a yelp from her. Enough, Mito commanded the priestess. Now Kushina, you once again blame Naruto for your problems. Please, I love my son, but I can't get on with my life, with everything the Shinigami did to us. Kushina tried to explain herself. So once again Naruto is to blame. What about Menma? Did you think about what this might do to him? They are brothers. Kagaya asked. Menma will still have his relationship with his brother. But I can't do this anymore. I woke up and I realized this is unhealthy for me. Kushina groaned. Mito thought for a minute before smirking, knowing the perfect punishment for Kushina. She then commanded the priestesses to bring Kushina to her. At her command she was brought before Mito and kneeled down in front of her. Mito cupped Kushina's chin in her hand. Since you want to remove Naruto from your life, then I'll be more than happy to oblige. I shall use a seal created by the Yamanakas with a little bit of Uzumaki magic to enforce it. I will remove all traces of Naruto from your memory. Kushina gasped as she struggled. When she said to remove Naruto from her life, she didn't mean it like that. Wait, Mito, please, that's not what I meant, please. She cried desperately. Mito shook her head before gripping Kushina's head as she applied the seal to her. Kushina grunted as she felt the seal burning into her head and slowly making its way into her brain. The priestesses kept her still as the seal finally managed to do her work. The Namikaze matriarch soon collapsed as Kagaya told them to send her back to Minato, along with a note about Kushina's punishment. The priestesses nodded as the head priestess took off her mask. You brought this upon yourself, Kushina, to think we were once like sisters. Mikoto scoffed. Take her away. The other three priestesses nodded and by her command, dragged Kushina's naked body through the village towards the Namikaze compound. Thank you so much for watching this video. I do hope you enjoy it. If you want the next part of this video, turn on that bell notification. Like, subscribe and comment down below. And also check out the others videos. I have created and enjoyed it. See you guys next video. Till that, take care.